All right, welcome to the Sae Bae Cast number 13 with Mod Arcane. This is a very special one, so I feel honored to have this privilege to speak to Mod Arcane. Um, Mod Arcane, how you doing today?
Pretty good. Yeah, I think you just put a lot of pressure on me with that opener. I'm hoping for a casual chat, but yeah,
So,
doing good.
first things first. So we were just talking before the recording. Mod Arcane. I'll let you explain it. You'll do it a little bit better. But what are like some of the things you are not like? What are like the restricted topics that I don't know? You just go into it. You just explain briefly like what you can and cannot talk about because obviously you're a game developer. So
So, like, generally, I could talk about most things as long as it doesn't like breach my NDA or anything, right?
mm-hmm.
But like, that doesn't mean I want to talk about everything. Just because I can doesn't mean I should. Um, I have looked through a lot of the questions on the Twitter post, at least, and there's a lot of questions generally directed at like the studio or it's like the high level direction of the game and stuff like that. And I'm fine to give my opinion on some things like that, but I don't want it to really come off as like Arcane versus Jagex or anything, because there's definitely other people on the team that will agree with me, but obviously other people that disagree with me, and like the team has differing opinions. That's fine. Um, and then I also don't want it to just be like again, like this is supposed to be kind of like me, like my like game design maybe, or like me as a player, as things like that. And I think there would be a bit more interesting because otherwise it's going to be fairly similar to just like a Q&A. I don't want this to devolve into one of the Wednesday Q&As, but unrestricted or anything like that. I don't want it to feel like that at all. That's not the
Yeah.
direction I'd like this to go in at all.
Okay. So just clarifying to you guys, I should have done a little bit better on the Twitter part of just saying like, hey, like try not to bring up topics that are just specifically what is like wins raids 3 wins all this what's happening with it because it isn't just a Q&A. This is I don't know what this is something completely, this is a different genre, man. No, but basically Mod Arcane, I don't think anybody's ever really heard about you as a player. I feel like most people understand you're an Ironman, but can you like go into a little bit of the origin of Mod Arcane? Like when did you even hear about RuneScape initially?
So I played RuneScape as a kid, like I'm sure most people have at this point. And I think my fondest, well, not my fondest really, but probably my strongest memory as a kid when I first started playing was my friend making me run Essence for him, so like the Earth Altar or something, and like he paid me pennies and whatever. And I had a time of my life, whatever. Um, Basically, just used me as a cheap labor, effectively. Um, that's fine. And then I played. I did a lot of basic stuff, nothing special, but as most people do when they're a kid. And I think in 2016, I was really burnt out from a lot of like high intensity PvP games. I played a game called Battlerite quite a lot. I think that was after 2016, but games like that where they're very like stressful at the end of the day, going and logging into matchmaking constantly, and I just wanted that like Netflix just do absolutely nothing experience, and RuneScape's obviously very complimentary for that. So I actually started playing RuneScape 3 around that time because I didn't realize old school OSRS actually existed at that point. I had no idea. So I was just playing RS3, made a new account, maxed that in like 4 or 5 months or something, as one does. Um, and then I quit for a while, and then eventually I heard about OSRS, and then I started that up. And it's just been like a on and off thing until 2.5 years ago, I think. And I've basically just been playing constantly for the last 2.5 years. Started off as a main, did a bunch of raids, did a bunch of Slayer, did a bunch of Inferno. Um, really got into it like after TOB release, but I wasn't obviously doing TOB at that point since it was quite hard to get into groups. Wasn't in a clan or anything. And then I think last year, so maybe like late 2019, I made an Ironman because kind of got bored of just doing like Grotesque Guardians, Tob, Zug, same things over and over again. Wasn't really that interested in pet hunting. Found it quite unfulfilling. But obviously, Iron Man kind of cured all that, right? It gives you like a whole
Yeah.
new outlook on the game and so many things to do, so many achievements. I feel a lot more rewarding. Not really got into that. I've been playing it ever since, pretty consistently. Recently, maxed my Iron Man a month or so ago. I'm just hunting like some proper end game items now. I think I've got Scythe left. I'm 10 out of 12 chambers. Obviously got Mace recently. Just trying to finish Nightmare, Tob, and chambers really as an end game ironman does, I guess.
Congrats on maxing, by the way. I saw that.
Thank you very
Um,
much.
so I guess we can. I mean, you kind of brought up a good point, and a lot. I hear it a lot on Twitter and a lot on Reddit of just people of endgame players, and you kind of mentioned it of you kind of being burnt out of just the typical bossing, which inspired you to make an Iron Man. But when or okay, how do I let me find a question that somebody actually phrased this in their own.
Yeah, there's been quite a few that probably are asking a similar question.
It's basically it comes to the point where like the overall theme is when is Raids 3 coming out, or when is the next bossing coming out? People complain that it's been over 3 years since the last like tough PVM challenge came out, which is Theater of Blood. Like, what are your thoughts on the whole thing? I know you can't speak for the team, but
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to talk about like schedule or anything like that, because there's not really much for me to leak at this point that I'm allowed to talk about. But we obviously want to do Raids 3. That's not a secret. Every time it gets brought up in a Q&A, we'd love to do Raids 3. I'd love to do Raids 3 as a player as well as a developer. Like, there's nothing really to hide about that. It's just kind of when, right? I think this year has just been really difficult, or I guess last year, we basically just started this year. Although, oh my god, it's March already. But last year was difficult because obviously COVID and everything, and then we have like all of these like big promises like on top of us already, where it's like we kind of need to do clans, we need to do group Ironman. We obviously got like Deadman and leagues that have come up, and where it's like people expect these things, which is fine. We still want to do them, but obviously that just reduces the scope of what we can really do. We can't do like 10 massive projects a year. It's just impossible. So I think this year, or I guess in the last 12 months, maybe is a better way of phrasing it, it's just been kind of difficult to have those really, really big updates.
yeah.
And I know, like, from a player, people are going, like, why have you given us Soul Wars when we could have had Raids 3? And it's like, at the end of the day, those updates are just not comparable at all. Like in terms of, like, size and complexity and art resource and everything. Like, they're just not comparable. And, yeah, again, you could go even further and say, well, why do I have to scratch, like, 4 or 5 of these updates? You would have been able to do Raids 3 then. Unfortunately, it's just not that simple. I'd love for that to be the case, but scheduling is a nightmare, especially with polling. Yeah, it's definitely on the horizon. We're going to be doing it at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. And I think it's only really exacerbated by the last 2 big PVM updates, which I guess is like Gauntlet and Nightmare, not really hitting that itch, really, like obviously like a Raid does. Like, I don't think Inferno really hit that itch. I think if you look at, 2017 or 2016 to 2018. So basically, you had like Chambers, Inferno, Tob, like 3 massive, like long-lasting pieces of content. The high-level community got a lot in like what I'd consider a relatively short period of time. And at the time that was released, the community was so much more underdeveloped. It took them longer to go through it and like figure everything out. Like, you're still figuring stuff out for Chambers and Stage because the amount of depth in that content is insane. I think if we did release Raids 3 tomorrow, the majority of the people that are really complaining about, like, I really need Raids 3, I'm just so bored, probably would burn out of it in months. Like, even if it had as much depth as Chambers, like, how like advanced the community is now of figuring out almost optimal methods and everything, like, they just go through it so fast. Yeah. I'm not using that as like an excuse to say that's not why we're doing Raids or anything. It's not the reason at all. I'm just saying, like, I think there's definitely a group of players that are going to burn through whatever we give them, no matter what. They're just going to get through it so fast, especially like the non-Ironman accounts where it's just about GP. Like, we've got people with 10 build GP on their account, right? Raids 3 comes out, they're probably just going to be able to buy all the uniques like day one. And then it's like, what does it really have for them? So then is it just like speedrunning? Is it KC? Is it pets? Is it just figuring out the content? So obviously the first 100, 200 KC is going to be engaging regardless, right? But as soon as you get to the point where you feel like you master the content, it generally gets boring no matter what it is. And that's where the depth really matters, right? Like, people felt like they mastered Nightmare in like a week, a day.
Yeah.
Just because the depth just wasn't really there. Kind of same with Gauntlet. And that's where Raids really scratch that really good long-lasting itch. But that long-lasting itch is very subjective, right?
Yeah.
Like some people will enjoy a raid for ages, while some people will enjoy it for 50, 100 KC. And I hope I kind of answers some things. It's kind of just a ramble of thoughts on the matter. And I want endgame stuff. I'm biased. I'm an endgame player, of course, but I don't think saying don't give the lower level player people anything like they don't need it or anything like that. Like this isn't going to hit the itch for those players. But we kind of need to give everyone content, and I think we've maybe shifted a step too far, you know, where it's like we've neglected early game players for such a long time now, and maybe we've just gone too far and we've just given them way too much, and like in 1 year, effectively, we've just given them so much to sink their teeth into. Like maybe we have just gone that one step too far, where one or two of them updates should have been catered to the high end. We haven't got the balance right. Clearly, people are upset, right? They're voicing their frustrations, and that kind of proves that we haven't got the balance right. And it's still something that internally people are working on, right? Like how do we balance all this content and make everyone happy simultaneously?
Yeah.
It's like so hard, especially things like Steam on our shoulders, right?
Well,
these like massive initiatives.
Well, I'll be honest. Personally, I don't feel like I don't think I agree with everybody on Twitter that just yells every day, wins raids 3, wins the just constantly want it, because it's not like it's just recent. This has been happening since before Nightmare even came out. Like just begging.
There has been complaints for a while.
Yeah. And like we have had the Gauntlet, which, and like you said, it doesn't have like the same depth as Chambers or TOB, but there still is so much, like there is Gauntlet, there is Nightmare we can talk about in a separate topic, but like I don't know. I personally don't.
This is the Ironman perspective, though, right? To an Ironman, there's so much to do. Like I've sunk like 5,000-6,000 hours, whatever, and there's still so much more content to do. And I've been extremely lucky on my account. I've probably saved thousands of hours just in like a pure RNG. But there's still so much content to do. But I think you do hit this like critical point where it's like say Nightmare is your only grind left on your account, you kind of lose that motivation because you're like, why am I grinding Nightmare? Like, where's my motivation coming from? What's pushing me? Because it's like, say I do go really hard and I get all these drops, then what? You're just going to quit. You don't even get to use all these items that you've grinded, right? Yep. You just stop. You've always got to have that grind after the current grind to like look forward to that you can use all your like fancy items on. But then from a main perspective, like what's the point in doing anything that's not top, right? Like you just make an absolute dick ton of money, and unless you care about pets, like what else is there to do? And that's kind of where like this is just going to obviously divert into me like sort of what's the word? Trying to show off my own content or whatever. So obviously I've been working on combat achievements for quite a while now, and this is where I kind of hope combat achievements is going to alleviate some of these issues, because I know it's not the same. It's not got the same the depth. It's not new content, etc., etc. But for some players, not all players, but for some players that only do like say Tob or Vorkath, like the efficient content, because they feel like they've got no reason to do any other content. They don't care about the pets. They just care about money, and they want to get the stats up and just get all the gear, right? That's all the most mains care about, at least from my perspective, and the majority. But obviously, there's no reason to do anything that's not the best GP per hour, whether that's with a team or solo play. But combat achievements is obviously going to give you a reason to do this other content. And what I'm hoping is by all these players experiencing such a wide berth of content, because RuneScape has so much to offer that these players are just effectively not touching at all, that maybe they actually just discover that they enjoy other pieces of content. Where they're like, maybe they actually do really like solo Kriara. They find it really satisfying. Maybe they enjoy this. Maybe they stop caring about the GP per hour and they actually look at all this different content and enjoy these different mechanics and engagement and the diversity. Like, hopefully they can just enjoy the game more because of that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm aspiring to something that will never happen. But that's what I'd like to think, because personally, that's kind of what Ironman did to me. Where it's like, I only did Inferno, Tob, and like solo Cox on my main, pretty much. And like some Slayer bosses like Grotesque Guardians. That's all I did. And that's so boring, because you just get bored doing the same thing day in, day out. No one enjoys doing the same thing day in, day out, like constantly. You need to have some variety, either in drops or content itself. And I'm hoping Combat Achievements kind of pushes that onto mains a bit. Since Ironman's kind of just get that for free, because you have reasons to go to every piece of content, pretty much.
Yeah. No, I honestly think Combat Achievements is going to be one of the greatest updates, because It has unlimited potential. Any other boss that comes out, it can be added. At least I think that's what's happening, right? Like
Yeah.
new things come out, and then whether there be a grace period or not, like it'll eventually be added. So personally, I think it's great because it's not forced upon anyone to do it. There's nothing
Mhm.
too OP that's like you have to do this now, but like
It
it
just
gives you
gives
nice
people
perks.
a reason to do it.
Yeah.
Because so people don't feel bad about doing stuff that's subpar GP per hour because they actually can go like, well, I actually kind of want to do these tasks. And hopefully that's enough of a motivator.
Yeah, and honestly, making an Ironman was the greatest thing ever because there was so many pieces of content that I would never ever would have done. And like I see mains all the time, just they're Inferno, Chambers, and TOB Andes, and like that's all they do. And so when there are very tough tasks, like I don't know, I'm going to assume there's maybe a solo Bandos task that has something to do with flicking. Honestly, there are probably so many. Okay, listen, a cold one. By the way, he's the GOAT because he completed a solo TOB first try on a hardcore. That's insane.
So amazing.
It's incredible. Honestly, it's like it's up there with Exact's 40 combat. Just
It
crazy.
really is.
Yeah.
The stress that man went under. Oh my god.
I was like squenching up so hard, man. I couldn't breathe. Like when you're in a car and like some crazy driver's in the driver's seat and you're just like pressing your legs against the car because you feel like you're gonna crash.
He's so uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
it's bad. But oh crap, I lost my train of thought.
Bandos tasks.
Oh yeah, like so. Listen, like a cold one. I brought up him because he literally had mentioned he has never learned to flick bandos. He's never needed to. He just maged it when he was on his Iron Man, and now like he's on a main or something. He doesn't need to worry about that.
That's the thing, right? Like a main, the amount of mains that do solo bandos is probably so small.
Oh yeah.
And solo bandos is actually really fun. Like melee solo bandos is so exciting and like fairly exhilarating. Like stuff that's like those tick perfect flicks is just so satisfying. That's why like solo Olm is like my favorite content in the game. Like that's like doing like Forza 0 and Forza 1 is just so satisfying.
So
and like
fun.
Bandos gives you that on a much lower level. It just gives you that feeling of power, right? Even in the Inferno, where you're like flicking like 3 or 4 monsters at the same time, you just get that feeling of empowerment. It's just addicting. And there's so many players that would just never experience that because they have no reason to do the content, right? And hopefully these tasks, again, really give people to experience this content and maybe they find that addiction and then they really enjoy that and they're like, this is great. I want to do this more.
Yeah. No.
Well, there is solo tasks. Spoiler.
Like it's because like a lot of mains, well, at least a lot of content is altable, and alting is almost always just more efficient. So Ironmen are basically forced to solo for most pieces of content, but and that's why you see mains like the mains that really do test their limits. It's all solo content. Like they'll do solo CM, solo TOB, solo Inferno, obviously solo Inferno, but like that's where it really pushes your limits. And so with all the other pieces of content where it's always been more efficient to just use alts and, just camp there, now we have with these new achievement diaries, like a way to push content that's already in the game and make it really fun and just exciting and new again.
That's what I'm hoping for sure. There's obviously going to be the people that are like, I just want to do top. Don't give me tasks that make me do anything that's not top. And I just don't think this update's really for them at the end of the day. And that's fine. Not every update needs to cater to every player. But it does exacerbate the whole thing where people are like, I want content. But they're like, I don't want that content. It's kind of inevitable.
All right. Let's go to the Twitter thread. So first question I want to... Okay, I just realized how many how many of the topics are literally just Wins Endgame content coming out.
I know there's so many similar, which obviously deserves that rumble that we just had, I guess.
All right, I want to go to Box Terriers first. He asks, what was your favorite content, or what is your favorite content to develop, and what are your long-term goals in game? So we'll start with the first one. What is or has been your favorite piece of content to work on?
Well, I've only been at the company for around a year. I think I've been here for 11 months now. I've done a lot of small things. For the majority of my time, I was on this team called the Operators, which works on the week-to-week updates. And generally, that's going to be the smaller, like, QoL fixes or, like, the QoL polls, so the poll 73 or poll 74, etc. Like, that team usually handles that. So I wouldn't, when it comes to saying, like, what is your favorite content to develop, I do quite enjoy the smaller stuff because you generally get that faster feedback loop. So you see people complaining on Twitter or Discord or Reddit or whatever, and then you can immediately like create a job for it, and then I'll do it, and then it'll go into the game like either next week or the week after that or the week after that, right? Depending on the size of it. And that entire feedback loop is like really satisfying because generally you're acting on what people are complaining about really fast, and that's fun. Obviously, that's not a type of content really, but that's like a way of developing, I guess, which has been quite fun. But that's been the majority of my time. Apart from that, I was one of the primary devs on Mahogany Homes. I do really enjoy like spreadsheets and doing all the numbers and stuff like that. Sounds like a fun thing. I think any skilling method's going to have that kind of stuff, where you just need to figure out all the numbers and figure out like XP rates, etc. So anything like that would be fun, but you can generally create spreadsheets for anything really, right? You can have it for kills per hour, bosses, drop rates, loot tables, whatever. You can have spreadsheets for whatever you want.
I love Mahogany Homes, by the way. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's kind of relaxing and kind of satisfying. I find it's got just about enough dopamine, I think.
Yeah, no, it's honestly perfect. Like I didn't do it for a while, like after release, but I did an hour of it and I just tried to sweat it out, try to find, because the cool thing about it is there are little efficient ways, and the longer you do it, you can kind of figure out little. It's almost like you can get to the point where you step on certain tiles just to save a tick or two per house, and it's really fun, I think.
That's the thing I love about RuneScape in general, and I think what people generally see as depth. It's all those like tiny little micro efficiencies that you just feel good doing.
Yep.
Like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, right? You're saving like a tick here and there, but it just feels good, and it just makes any content more enjoyable when those things are an option. And that goes to PVM as well, right? Like there's so many like micro optimizations and solo chambers to just take less damage or just get through the runes a bit faster. It's just fun to do. Well, that's where like, again, like going back to like Nightmare and Gauntlet, I still think they're amazing updates, but they don't have a lot of those tiny little micro efficiencies where you can feel like you're improving and getting better. Like the skill cap is just low at the end of the day.
I think the Gauntlet, I would argue the Gauntlet actually really does have some of those really quick tick saves, especially with like the fishing and filling vials.
Yeah, there are a couple of small ones, but maybe they just get clouded by the RNG.
No, you're right.
Maybe that's the issue there, as opposed to not having them at all. But yeah, I don't really know what my favorite content is to develop. To be honest, I enjoy doing math. I'd obviously like to work on a really big PVM update one day. I have been working on some PVM updates in my ideation time, which has been quite fun, just fleshing out some prototypes and just seeing how stuff works, and hopefully getting to the point where I can just playtest a lot and figure out, like, would I enjoy doing this for potentially 3,000 hours? Like, who knows? So obviously, if I can get to that state, I'm probably going to hopefully expect other people to enjoy it, because I'd like to think of myself as a in-game player, and you can do obviously the same content for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. So if I'm happy to do it, hopefully someone else is.
Yeah. So before I ask his second question, long-term goals, I actually kind of want to go into like spreadsheets and drop rates and things. Okay, I'll just share how I feel about it. So I will always relate drop rates to elite clues, because I think they are the most just so horribly balanced with so many pieces of content. And to be fair, some of them are hard to balance because there is alting methods and there's other things. But like what I heard, I don't know if it was from you or Husky in my stream like months ago, but I think it might have been Husky. But I was just asking like what decides what an elite clue rate is? Like, why is it 1 in like 190 for a nightmare kill, but then it's 1 in 60 for a mid-level Sarachnis? And I think Husky, it might have been you, but I think it was Husky that just said, basically just depends on who's developing the content, and they can just decide what the rates are of things. And it just, if there's no major issue, it just passes. Or it just, not passes, but it just gets put into the game like that.
Set into lives. So yeah, that was me, not Husky. And I mean, I don't see a real innate problem with it. I don't think like there should be this like clue council or something, Jagex, where it's like, is this clue rate completely acceptable for this content? Because I don't think every piece of content needs to have like a good clue rate. Like obviously you can debate with Nightmare, it's just too high to the point where it's kind of like, what's even the point in having it on the drop table at all? But it's not like everything needs to be like, oh, every piece of content should be 40 hours to receive this many clues or whatever. Right? I don't think that needs to exist. It's completely fine to have even very varying drop rates. But yeah, I completely understand if you think that maybe this piece of content is just like, why? It just looks weird, right? Like if you get 2 uniques per elite clue, like Nightmare uniques, it's kind of like, really? But I think maybe that was just exacerbated by the obviously soloing being more efficient at Nightmare generally. Maybe it's not as much of an issue in smaller groups, since obviously you get like 5 times as many kills an hour.
Yeah. And that wasn't like, and that's not the only, I mean, obviously I brought up that because it is directly related to what I do in game. But the other thing is like, you know, drop rates of, you know, Nightmare, like the Mace is, you know, a 400-hour grind, whereas a Sail Door is, I think it's like 70 hours or something like that. Or even fewer. I'm not sure on that. But like, is there like before Nightmare was released? I don't think you worked on Nightmare because that came out right before you joined, correct?
No. I think it was literally getting launched as soon as I joined.
Okay. So who like? Okay, I want to bring this up because I mean, you're on here, so I can ask. But what are your thoughts personally on Nightmare drop rates, and especially I don't know because I'm assuming you knew that they were they were way worse when they were first released.
Unreleased, yeah.
So who's deciding these drop rates, and do you think Nightmare specifically was made this way just to kind of appease people for a long period of time?
So in answer to your last question, definitely not. That wasn't the intent. Where it's just kind of like, oh, we need this content just to last because we don't have anything scheduled. That wasn't the case. Like I've talked to a lot of the devs that worked on that project, and it just kind of seemed that there's a lot of conflicting goals of the project, where it's kind of like it should like cater to these people, but then we don't want it to like introduce too many items into the game too fast because then they'll get. Like if I run you through some hypotheticals of what the drop table could look like, you can kind of see like the design problems that it has. Like if you compare it to Corp, obviously, like you could have just had a Corp style drop table. It could have scaled up like Corp, where the more people you are, the faster it dies. But then, like, you wanted to have a standard loot as well, right? So it's like, well, you want everyone to have a chance at the unique, because otherwise, it's the lower level players are just never going to have a chance at the unique, right? Like, you go to Corp with like 70 strength and 70 attack or whatever, 75 attack for the spear or whatever it is. You're probably just never going to have a chance at anything, right? You're going to get 0 drops, 0 KC, and it's kind of just lame. It's not really encouraging it as a group boss. So then, obviously, the idea comes in, everyone gets the KC. It's obviously similar to like Zulcana or whatever, but it's just not really not many people cares about the drop rates of Zulcana at this point. But then you want to give everyone loot as well, because you don't want people to kill the boss and get nothing. But then we can't give everyone good loot, because if we gave everyone like 5 prayer pots every kill, obviously that's just so many prayer pots that can come into the game in an 80-man, right? Like, there's just so many.
Yep.
You can't really do that, so then the drop rates should be like scaled down, and it's like, okay, well, we want everyone to feel like they have a chance of the unique, but then how did we actually do that? Like, if Nightmare didn't scale at all, or maybe the drop rates did scale, with how many people were in it, like, I think mathematically or something, you would have to have the boss drop a unique every 5 kills or something in an 80-man for it to be like the same drop rates as doing solo. Which, if you just think about that, that's crazy. How many uniques are coming into the game then? Like, if you get potentially a Nightmare Mace every 50 kills or something like that, an Inquisitor's Mace every 50 kills, like there's so many maces coming into the game, then the market would just crash. Like, it'd just be worth nothing.
So so I have a counter argument. So let's say, you know, you'll bring up the point of 5 prayer pots. For let's just say there was an 80-man, let's just say the 80-man takes 3 minutes or something. I don't even know how long those take, honestly. Never done one. But,
yeah, I get that.
I mean, wouldn't it be fair if everyone got, you know, 4 or 5 prayer pot? Like, is it like actually like, because I'm just thinking 80 people are participating in this content, whereas if there was only one person, those 79 other people would be doing Vorkath or something else. Like, and then they're getting way more supplies somewhere else. So like, was that really like, I don't know how
I'm
I'm
not saying
trying to
these are
phrase
like the
this.
direct considerations. I'm just trying to say like all these directions the drop table could have gone in. I'm not saying that the drop table right now is perfect at all. I don't think that at all. I think there's loads of changes that could have been made to it in a lot of different directions. But I'm just saying, like, if everyone did get 5 prayer pods in man, that's a lot of prayer pods coming into the game. And if you think about worst case scenario where like every world is full of like 80-man people doing that, like that's the meta, right? 80-man people, like that's potentially so many supplies that are coming into the game. And yeah, you're right in the sense that okay, it's taking it away from other content. That's where it just becomes really unpredictable. So maybe this was just like a really safe route, whereas like okay, it might feel a bit underwhelming. But then I think there's just so many things with Nightmare because then you got like the whole run distance. Like maybe that was just taken too far. Like, is the run through the caverns long enough to dissuade people using POH metas? Like, imagine if you could teleport right outside the stairs before you go down into the dungeon or whatever. Like, is that run long enough to still be long enough to not care about teleporting to house every kill? I think so, to be honest. I think if you only had to make that run as opposed to going from the boat or top bank to those stairs and then obviously go into Nightmare from there. Like, is it just too much? Like, and then obviously you have the drop rates and you have the kills per hour, then you have the scaling. There's just so many factors that I think it tried to hit, and by trying to hit every single one simultaneously, it kind of just flopped a bit.
Yeah. And I honestly, Nightmares, I have my own thoughts on it. I think the biggest part about Nightmare is just how many hours it truly does take for items that are not particularly that great.
I think that's very subjective. I think Inquisitor's Mace is amazing.
Oh no,
that's coming from my perspective. I know you really want one.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
no, I agree. Okay,
Inquisitor's Mace is so much more valuable than Blade of Seldar, so I don't think the direct comparison is fair.
I agree that the Mace and the Harmonized Staff are great. Now, is like, I don't know, like personally I always thought like when Nightmare first came out, I was thinking Mace was going to be camped at like 300 mil. I thought like that would be around the price. And so when it
Rapier was out on launch, right? For
yeah,
a long
I think
time.
so, right? And so when I see the prices rise and then I feel like players just get into their minds like, oh my god, like things are dropping in price, but I don't feel like they were ever really supposed to be valued at that. Like realistically, when a harm staff drops below a bill, it's like I never even expected a harm to be that great. It's just because it's so rare. It takes like 600 hours to get. That's the reason why it's so expensive. But like actual like use wise, like I don't think it's actually really worth that much. I mean, obviously it's not. It's too hard to just say, oh, it's not worth this much, because obviously it does come down to how rare the item is and like how much it's being camped and stuff. But like, personally, that's my only issue with Nightmare, was just the scaling's a little whack. I don't want to just go on my rant about how bad it's scaled, but the drops in general, I just think are a bit too over the top. So like if Raids 3 came out and it was similar, where you are not seeing an item in your name for like 40 hours on average, like, I don't know. Personally, I think it's overkill, but... And the reason I think it's overkill is because I relate it directly to like Tob, where Tob, if you're doing a 3-man, I mean, you can get an item every 12 hours or something pretty... If you're doing like good runs, you can see an item in your own name in like 12 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas Nightmare is arguably more tedious, and it takes like 3 times as long.
That's the thing, right? It comes down to like every factor combined. Like, what about if Nightmare wasn't so tedious, and like maybe the run wasn't as long, so the kills per hour is slightly higher? And what about if the regular drops scaled down if you're in solo play, right? Like, imagine it dropped 80 tour stalls, but then it divided that amongst all the players that were there. So in an 80-man, everyone got 1. In a solo, you got 80.
I would love that, by the way. But then you'd have to remove the scaling from the 80-man.
But you see my point.
Yeah,
imagine if things
totally
like that were a thing. Like, maybe you wouldn't feel as bad about having to spend 40 hours to get a unique. It's like all the factors combined, not necessarily each individual one.
Yeah.
Which I think has kind of put Nightmare in this like awkward spot. But yeah, I completely agree with like where you're coming from in terms of it just feels a bit odd. I'd love to give the staffs like more use. Like, imagine if Harmonized could actually be used. Like, I don't want to say it could be used on ancient spellbook, because I know that really affects like 200 mil slayers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A significant amount. But imagine if it did have some other better usage, and like, again, because right now, especially on an Iron Man perspective, it's just so niche, and more bosses can come out where Inquisitors and Inquisitor's Mace is even better, right? To emphasize that they're really powerful armors. Obviously, if Siren's Tome or whatever actually got added, the drop table looks even more lucrative, right, and more desirable. There's so many factors that went into play. It's not one individual thing, then it's kind of awkward to do at this point, right? Like, you can't really just completely update the drop table.
So I know we're not allowed to talk on really like what the team's opinions are, but do you feel like the overwhelming consensus is like Nightmare is not perfect, and like the next piece of content can kind of learn from it? Like,
oh, for sure. Every time any update comes out, we have like a retrospective, and we're like, oh, what was good, what was bad, what we could change. Obviously, we have the immediate feedback in the upcoming weeks, and then obviously, if we got anything we feel like still fair to address later on, we still pull it. And just like we had the Nightmare change, the Parasite changes semi-recently, and things like that, right? Like, we can still change all that, but as like a project whole, like every project gets reflected, and we're kind of like, okay, this didn't hit the mark on XYZ marks, like how can we avoid that Raids 3? And I think Raids 3 is really going to have so much like care put in because of that, because obviously we've got like 2 raids and Nightmare, and like we've effectively got 2 like insanely popular updates, and then obviously we've got like some updates where we're like, we try to achieve XYZ, like what actually went well. And for Raids 3, we can put like all these learnings together, and the team is like grown so much more and like so much more diverse as well, and like the team's specialities. And I have a lot of high hopes for Raids 3. But yeah, like I think the team's obviously fairly united on the stance where we're just kind of like, yeah, some things in Arcane didn't do great, but we're not like, we don't think it's a failed update or anything like that, where it's just
people are still doing it.
Yeah, I still really enjoy that content. I really enjoy Solo Nightmare. I know I'd probably feel different if I've done. How much have you done? Like 2,500 or something crazy?
Like 20. I think I'm actually. Let's just look. I think I'm at 2,300, but it's just over 2,000 actual solos.
Exactly. Like, I'd probably feel different at that point when you start getting that existential dread of where is this drop. But I do enjoy that content. I enjoy it in groups. Like, I've done my like fair share of group Nightmare as well as Solo Nightmare and Duo Nightmare. I think it's good content. I really like group content. I really like massable content, and I appreciate that I can do it on my Ironman as well, which is nice, since it's kind of lame that I can't do port masses with the boys.
The last thing I'll kind of mention on Nightmare, because I could go on to it, because that's literally the content I do. So there's a lot of things I could talk about. But like you just said, things that have diversity just in the boss alone, where you can like mass it and stuff, like that's cool.
Yeah.
I really wish it was actually worth it to mass Nightmare, because like doing an 80 man, we all know the scaling is just out of control, where you would have to do so many 80 mans to ever see an item in your name. But like, it would be so awesome if like the scaling was toned down massively to the point where if you chose to do an 80 man, you can get kills in like a minute, just fly through them. So it kind of adds to that diversity of just getting with a bunch of people and massing it, similar to Corp. Because I just feel like an 80 man compared to a 10 man is basically the same thing. It takes just as long. Sure. And
it feels like the fight's not any different at all, right? It's the exact same fight. Exactly. You've got a slightly higher chance to get in the raid. Like, it's never supposed to be efficient, right? Because even in like Corp, it's not efficient to mass Corp if you want uniques. Like, obviously, if you want to like boost it in a certain person's name, sure, but like, you're never gonna get insanely, because you're always capped by the respawn rate. It's always gonna be the thing. I think the issue with Nightmare, like, and I've said this to you before, where it's just kind of like, imagine it didn't scale at all, and it was always like the 5-man scaling, even with 80 people. You would never get a special attack at all. Like, the fight just becomes nothing.
I know, but that's what would be so fun about it. Is like that's the beauty of Corp. It's like you just go in there, tap
it. Doesn't really have mechanics, right? That's why it kind of works. But imagine if Nightmare's just jumping in and down the floor constantly.
It would be glitching.
The majority of the fight is waiting for goddamn sleepwalkers to walk towards it. Like, that's so weird.
I know, but it would make it so much fun, in my opinion. Like, you should honestly, like, I would love it if you guys just came out with like a tournament world and just tested it and just we could do an 80 man and just see how disgustingly fast it would just all pass. Like I don't know, I just think that would be so much fun. It'd be really massable and you could just camp there. Like that honestly, when Nightmare was first coming out, that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping to
Yeah.
get all my Iron Man friends and we're just camping this thing, just demolishing it and just having a bunch of fun hanging out with my friends, and then it just ended up being, oh nope, that's not efficient. Now I gotta sit in this instance for the next 1,000 hours
Yeah.
and just alone. I
I
don't know.
think there would need to be some mechanical change to the boss. I don't think there needs to be like big ones. Like I
It
do
could,
think it's legitimately a problem if the majority of the fight you're just there's more time for
yeah.
transitions than there are fight
No,
balls. It's like the same issue Grotesque Guardians had, right? Where there's so much transition time, it's just frustrating.
yeah.
But yeah, like you could scale it down, right? Like you could look into that. I think at the end of the day, it was probably just like, how much time do we really want to spend around making this like work in a 50 man
Yeah.
or 40 man or whatever the threshold would be?
One thing that would be kind of cool is if you were in an 80 man, Nightmare becomes like super enraged, almost like the more people that are in there. So if you get hit, you have a chance of getting one shot basically every every like missed prayer. So it actually becomes more challenging in a way, but the fight's so quick.
Yeah,
That,
maybe
like,
the damage just scales up and not the health.
yeah,
So
and
then
like if
people
you
actually
get
do
dashed,
want the break.
like if you get dashed, it's like a guaranteed 130 damage swipe. Like I don't know. I just think
It was kind of like Fasani's Nightmare in a sense, right? That just
yeah, yeah,
basically made
yeah.
every mechanic a one shot.
No, I think that's so fun though. Especially if it was in a mass, I would just be laughing the whole time, just watching everyone die. Like it would just be so much fun. But
And that actually is a thing right now. Like sometimes I'll go on the mass world if I'm like, say I go to Nightmare and my friend's not geared up yet.
yeah,
I'll
you'll
just
just see
go
a bunch
hop
of
to the
people
mass
die.
world, do one kill, and you just watch all these people die constantly. And this flicks. Everyone gets hit by the dash, walk into each other's pools. Like, oh, it is funny. I agree with that. I think I'd love that experience to exist, but I don't think it's as simple as just not making the boss scale, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now there is a lot more thing, and that's kind of what happens with everything I've seen, like in Jagex. Like players complain about one certain thing, but there's so much nuance to everything. It's you can't just say this would make it better. This would make it. There's so many
That's the
factors
thing,
to
right?
everything.
It's our job to try and think about everything it affects and how it looks at the end, as opposed to just thinking about the one thing we could change.
So, what are your long-term goals in the game as a maxed Iron Man?
Currently, I'm getting blood shards because, like, why not? Best thing to do while doing nothing. I think I have like 8 or something right now. I'm 9.
That's amazing.
Just try to get more for the sake of it. Like, it's going to be amazing for combat achievements. Just wearing every goddamn piece of content ever.
No, it's pretty OP. What are your honestly?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Blood Fury? Just in general.
I think it's, at least for Iron Man, it's like balanced, or I guess for mains as well. It's balanced by the price and
Yeah.
the time, right? So like it'll never be efficient to get them, and I really like how it's like a really nice option. I think it's very dangerous. Husky brought this up to me at some point where it's like there's a very dangerous point where we release content and weapons which just get more and more powerful to the point where Blood Fury obviously just scales with that. Like, say we do one day introduce like these like I don't know, Scythe 2, Twisted Bow 2, whatever, and like theoretically Blood Fury scales with that even more because of the higher DPS output. Like some content might just become really weird because of that. So you got to be like really careful. But I think the direction we're gonna want to go with at some point is like high defense monsters, so which then you release like high accuracy weapons as opposed to just adding strength onto everything. So it's not like power creep, it's like side creep, where it's like, okay, well, this accuracy is still better, but then maybe the accuracy doesn't matter at this content, so you'll use this other item. But then for the new content we release, maybe the accuracy is really relevant, and then hopefully Blood Fury doesn't scale too hard with that then. Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's just maybe slightly overtuned, but not massively.
Yeah. And I honestly, it is balanced because if you want to use it and have the ease, because I was just thinking if I was a main, oh my God, if I was doing solo Nightmare, I'd be using a Blood Fury all day. But then I think, oh, wait, that's like however much that is, what, 6 mil or something?
Yeah, it's like 6 mil, and then obviously Scythe, assuming you hit all 3 heads, it's like an extra 900 GP, and Scythe's already a K at GP, so it's like doubling your GP loss an hour. But obviously, for a certain point, GP becomes meaningless on my main. Like, I've got a lot of money in my main, and we've been doing this clan event currently. And I've just been using Scythe and Blood Fury absolutely everywhere. I'm like, not actually caring at all because I don't really care about the money on that account.
Yeah.
Which is quite freeing in a way. It's quite liberating to go back to main and just not care about all these resources at all. But it does kind of trivialize some content. Like I was doing some solo tab attempts for this event, and just being able to use Scythe and Blood Fury it's a very weird feeling.
Yeah. No, I did a couple kills actually the other day because I'm on my last Blood Fury. I've been on it for months, and I just occasionally use it. I just can't be asked going back for 10 hours trying to get a Blood Fury, and then maybe not even getting one. I would rather just do Nightmare kills.
Dude. It's gonna help so much.
No, it's amazing, but like I did a phase 2 at Nightmare with a Scythe and a Blood Fury, and it was actually just disgusting. It was just fun. I was like, oh my god, I have 0 stress right now. I'm just camped at 90 HP plus the whole phase.
That's amazing, yeah.
But like you said, it is balanced toward. I mean, it's balanced naturally because I'm not choosing to go camp blood shards. If they were really worth it, I mean, I'd be going to getting them. But it is locked for Ironman by hours spent AFKing, and then for mains GP.
So the rest of the question, I guess, long-term goals in game. Yeah, I briefly mentioned it earlier. I just want to finish all this piece of content. I don't have any Butte Heart. I don't have a Scythe. I want to get ready for combat achievements. Obviously, I have a bit more time now. I want to get everything to the point where I can happily go for all like the speed times on my account. Because right now, I probably feel like a bit of a liability going for like the speed top times without a Scythe, things like that. So I just want to get like every good PVM item, and then it's just using them. I don't really have much interest in pet hunting. Like eventually, if I do get every single item, I get Grandmaster combat achievements and things like that, I'll probably try and get the Nibbler pet, since I tried for quite a long time on my main account and never got it. So I'd probably just try and wrap that up.
How many Infernos have you done?
I think I'm over 50-something KC now.
Jesus, gamer.
On both accounts. Yeah.
Okay. Damn. It's a lot. I've done like 4. All right.
Content.
Question from Whale. This is kind of a cool question. I like it. It's unique. It's niche. He asks, he's curious to know why things like the Gutnoth and Dragon Eye shortcuts get pulled when they seem pretty keen on adding longer clue steps. Isle of Souls, Dude by Nightmare, not giving the single Shazian supply crate unnoted. Long steps are fine, but why make other ones faster? So this is like the whole clue thing.
I read this question and I got kind of confused. Am I right in thinking that the question is, why are things getting pulled to make clue steps shorter? Is that basically just the gist of it?
It sounds like he's just saying like, why are certain ones why would the Gutnoth hard clue thing even be pulled at all if there's other steps that are being added that are just as long? Like what's the meaning of making it? Is it just to give for that clue step specifically? It was because now there's an agility shortcut, so it accents, if you have a high agility level, you can get through this step faster. But like, is there a reason why some are even pulled in the first place? Are clues supposed to be tedious, or are they like, at least that's what I'm seeing it is, like, why are certain ones pulled and others not? Was the Dragon's Eye shortcut ever pulled? I don't even remember that.
I think both of them were pulled. That's what I mean. Like, I don't know if the question is like, is there an inconsistency of pulling things, or is it like, why do you sometimes make clues longer and why do you sometimes make clues faster? So it's like the clues per hour theoretically is always going up or down.
No, that's a good.
Which I can kind of understand, but again, like the things that make it faster have requirements, and I guess if you don't care about the requirements, it's just looking like it's been made faster to you. I think the level requirements are fair for the content. The Dragon's Eye one was quite a lot, much higher agility requirement than the Gutnoth one.
What was that one? I don't even remember the Dragon's Eye being pulled. What was that? Did that one pass?
You can bring a long rope, and I think you need like high 80 agility or something.
And then
you create a shortcut down the cliff.
From the very top point of the cliff.
Yeah.
Correct? And did
So
that
it
one
doesn't like
pass?
make the entire clue really fast or anything. It probably saves you like maybe 10 seconds, 12 seconds.
Depends if you fall early. I always pray I fall, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's just skipping a small frustration if you got a high requirement. Like I don't really see anything wrong with that as like a concept. Like
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of misunderstanding. Now I'm kind of misunderstanding the question in general too, because I actually like it when agility and certain skills are like give
they
you
have a point,
perks.
right?
Yeah, they give you a
Yeah.
perk.
I
So
think we need a lot more of that. And currently in the game, like especially if you're playing on a main account, like you could probably be 1800 total and experience like almost all the end game content and not really care. Like, there's very little incentive to actually level your account currently, unless you want to max. And I think we really should be adding more incentive to all accounts to really level up.
you know what? I just had a little thought. I think it would be really cool is if on the Arceus spellbook. I know there was some teleports being added, like new teleports. I think
Mhm.
a sleep. Wait, was a sleep teleport added? Why does that sound so familiar? That wasn't added, was it?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. I think a sleep teleport would be amazing, or even a nightmare tunnel teleport, because it's kind of gravestony in a way. It's kind of,
It would be kind of thing. I kind of agree
and you can
with
make it
that.
like 99 magic, something crazy where it's like, okay.
It's probably a bit late.
Yeah,
There's a
no, it
gravestone there as
definitely is.
well. It's already been pulled, but maybe that's something like post launch, right? If like people really want that, like maybe that could be another spell added to the spell book.
Is
Seems reasonable.
is the Arceus spellbook coming out after Achievement Diaries and equipment rebalancing, or is that before?
There's no like dates scheduled in for equipment rebalance and combat achievements. That's still to be determined.
Okay, so Arceus spellbook's going to come out before that, you think?
I think so currently,
Okay.
but it's all up in the air. We could end up pushing CA or being a lot further, or
I'm
bringing
so
it closer.
I'm so excited for that update. By the way, I'm actually
Which one?
extremely excited. The Arceus spellbook.
Oh, for sure. I'm really excited for that. That's actually probably going to be one of the most meta-changing updates we've had in a while, which
I'm
is
so
fun.
pumped. BC Guppy literally like pumped me up for it so hard. Like I just think it's cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that podcast.
Okay, let's move on. So hopefully that. I mean, now I just don't. I understand the question, but at the same time, I understand why those clue steps are being pulled because it
If
gives.
he wants to
ability
tag
for-
me and ask for further clarification in case we didn't answer it, I'm fine with that.
All right, well, we'll just ask this. Rob asks, will new bosses give little to no resources from normal loot like how Nightmare is? Are they trying to find a middle ground between bosses like Vorkath and Nightmare for future?
I don't think the team wants to release another Vorkath in terms of just like, this is just like really debatably easy content that just gives you so much resources. Like, it's insane. I don't think we need another one of those in the game. I mean, Forecast was way before my time in joining the team, but I imagine in that period it was kind of like, our players are only doing Zora right now. Like, we should probably give them something else for those kind of players, and they are extremely popular, right? Especially for those like mid-level players where they just want a bunch of money and they're trying to afford like the DHCB and stuff like that. I think they're really good, but I don't like how it kind of doesn't peter off, if that makes sense. Where it's like, okay, you've got your first 100 mil, you should just stay at Vorkath. Oh, you got 300 mil, just stay at Vorkath.
Yeah.
Like, I'd like it so there's more of an emphasis to transition. I think it's a shame that Chambers' Eric is like really fallen off for like GP per hour. It's just like less incentive. But obviously, like getting into raids is a lot harder than getting into Vorkath. Yeah. But stuff like Nightmare is that middle ground in reality. It's just kind of like, it's not as hard to get into as Chambers, but it's hard to get into in Vorkath, debatably.
Vorkath, honestly, I mean, I think it's a little bit overtuned. Like, at this point, I don't even think about it anymore. It's just been in the game for so long. But Vorkath never had a crazy unique, like a blowpipe or a magic fang, or
No, yeah.
it only really had that Dragonfire ward. And so I kind of agreed. I was okay with, okay, this thing's just shitting out money. That's fine. But
yeah, that's just its thing, right?
Or Zora always had the chance to give zero loot because the weapons were just, the uniques were so crazy good. Like, it never even needed anything else. But yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, that update was a long time ago, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Before I even started playing.
Times have changed. community's changed, the team has changed. It's hard to really reflect on things that long ago.
So do you think like Raids 3, do you think that'll have a TOB loot table for the average loot or more like Nightmare? What do you like? Obviously, you can't speak for the team, but what do you think?
I mean, I have no idea what the devs, because I'm not on that project right now, and like I don't know who is going to be on that project, etc. Like I don't know at all.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be up to that dev, but obviously it'll get passed around the team, and there'll be a lot of opportunity for feedback. And you betcha, I'll be giving a lot of feedback. But I don't think it'll be like Nightmare. It's probably going to be more rewarding than Nightmare because it's probably going to take 20, 30 minutes to complete the raid or however long. So it's not going to feel right to give you that pitiful amount of loot. I don't know what the drop tail is going to look like, but it probably is going to sit in between Vorkath and Nightmare, I imagine, outside of Uniques. But obviously Uniques is probably going to bump it up a lot, especially on release when they're all going to be like bloody max cash.
I'm so excited.
But I guess my answer is I don't know. I don't think we like stuff like Vorkath arbitrarily, but I think TOB is a little generous. It's a bit too insane, but then even Chambers is kind of insane from like a herb perspective, but then TOB is just kind of insane from a overall perspective. Yeah. I think TOB was probably balanced around a lot of people wiping.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it... So, dude, when TOB first came out, I was like, they've made something way too hard. Like, this is way too hard. Like, Wooks can't even do this, like, day one. Like, what is happening, you know? But we've just seen the whole community just get so much better at the game through these updates. Raids 3 is going to... I really, really hope Raids 3 is at the point of difficulty that TOB was on release, where the first day, nobody's even completing it.
I imagine it will be. I'm not sure if it'll have mechanics that are, like, more punishing than TOB, because I think... TOB mechanics are already incredibly punishing.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many, like, effectively one-shot mechanics in that content, right?
Yep.
Like Zarpus, if you scythe yourself, you're dead, right? So it's like Ball, if you do that wrong, you're dead. Bloat Stomp, like, it can hit 80s. Yep. Verzik can get comboed out so fast. Like, I can't imagine Raids 3 would be more punishing than Top, but I'd like to think the mechanics are going to be complicated and intricate and mechanically intensive, but maybe it'll be more of a stamina test of making less mistakes over time as opposed to making one mistake at all. I don't know. At the end of the day, it's just going to come down to whoever works on it.
All right. Caveman Only. He asks a few things, but I just want to get to his last question because I know he's asking about the dev teams and the dev team stance and stuff, but I'll skip over that. And he asks at the end, how would a new skill or lack of one affect the game's longevity?
And adding a new skill adds a lot of longevity, right? Because the skills generally affect so much, or idealistically, they'd affect so much. Because they can affect they can touch so many parts of the games, whether that's like PVM raids, like new mechanics, new items, new areas, like new quests, like whatever. Like a new skill is probably going to always be the most individually impacting update the game would ever have, unless it just comes out with the intention of being very, very isolated, which I don't think would ever happen. It's kind of pointless in my eyes. A lack of one affecting the game's longevity? I guess it depends how you come from it. I guess if people are maxing their accounts and then they're quitting because they miss that like consistent dopamine that they're not getting from PVM, maybe it'd help that. I don't really know, to be honest. I think skill design is just so complicated, especially in OSRS. It's going to be really, really difficult to tackle that subject again.
You already know what my stance is if you watch the BC Guppy cast. Sailing, man. Sailing.
Yeah.
I'm on the boat, man.
I'm just sailing again.
Yeah. No, I just BC Guppy. I just got to give another shout out to him. Just totally has warped my view, or not even warped, but just given me a good view of what a skill can really offer. And I think sailing is our best bet. I don't know. I mean, somebody could change my mind, but honestly, like if there ever was a new skill, and I wouldn't say I'm opposed or like totally for a new skill in general, but if there was one, I think there really is so much potential with just a fresh slate of like, I don't know, balance. And like, I don't know, because just this game's been out for so many years. There's just so many balancing little issues with certain things where just some things are just never worth doing, some things are crazy worth doing. Like a new skill could offer like perfect balance, and I don't know, it would be amazing.
But it kind of also goes against what people, or it goes with people, what people dislike as well. Like people generally dislike it when metas are shifted too much, right? For
True.
obvious reasons, generally around devaluing grinds. And if it is going to touch so many aspects of the game, it's probably going to shift a lot of metas. And is that what people would be happy with? It has to like be kind of isolated if it's not going to do any of that. So it's how do you make it very exciting and like touch so many parts of the game, which is generally what I'd like to think is a very interesting skill. Like I do think archaeology and exploration and sailoring are all examples of skills that touch so many aspects of the game and have so much depth. And doing that without affecting the current game effectively, like what people are currently doing for their other skills and their other PVM, it's very difficult.
Oh yeah. I can't even imagine being in a dev's shoes because I want what I want and whatever I want, I'm like, okay, that I want that to come into the game. But you really have to think of so many game modes and communities and just the effects of everything.
Yep.
So
it's hard.
Actually, talking about that, 42 asks, any thoughts on the impacts updates have on particular communities at the expense of others? He gives an example: the Ice Cave substantially devaluing free-to-play Iron community.
I mean, I'd like it if no update would have any downside or negative effects on any community, right? Like, I think that's always the idealistic dream. Like, I wasn't working on that project, so I can't really give a testament to maybe how much it was like considered or anything like that. But I'd like to think every community is always considered, and it's just going to be like a waiting at the end of the day, right? Where it's kind of like, are we happy for the benefits we get from this compared to the downsides? Is there any way to shift the update in any way where it doesn't affect them as much? And I know that the Blow Ice Mountain Blood got updated quite a lot after the first initial one, to a point where I think a lot more people were happy with it. At the end of the day, you're probably never going to release any single update that's going to please everyone, which is just obviously frustrating as a developer. Like, you always want to please everyone.
Yep.
Just tough. Sometimes you just got to make those calls.
Is there, I mean, again, this is kind of more of the dev team in general, but just going off that, I have a question. Is there ever a certain part of the community that you do try to appeal more to, as in like potentially new players coming in? Like, is it, I know this is kind of almost like an awkward question, but like, is there a community that you guys tend to focus on, at least recently, more just to, because you've seen the numbers? Like, maybe this is more of a, I think this is I think I'm crossing the line right here with the dev team's response asking you this, but is there a team
I think I know what you're asking.
Yeah, is there a community you appeal to more, try to?
There's never a point where we're just like sat there just thinking like, like looking at a spreadsheet and going like, oh, there's more people in this bracket, let's like throw stuff at them. It doesn't work like that. I think generally we're just we have our ideations, like where we come up with a bunch of idea projects, and some of them get prototypes, some of them are just like rough designs on a document or whatever, and we pass them around the team. We'll get like votes on them and say like, do people in the team enjoy this? Like, do we like this? Is it got potential? Is there any feedback, etc.? It's like refine this idea, and then eventually they'll just get put in a backlog, and then when it comes to it is just going to be like, oh, what content have we released recently? What's coming up and stuff? How do we balance out the roadmap? Obviously, I'm not scheduling, I'm not production. I don't know exactly how we go into it and figure everything out. But the idea is to obviously balance it all out so it feels good. And that's where I was talking about earlier, where the last 12 months or so, maybe it's just not been as balanced as it should have been at the end of the day, where not every single community or target audience has been catered for equally. Maybe it has been just too heavy shifted on like the earlier game experience. But it's an iterative thing. It's not like this is setting a precedent for the future where like the last year is going to be the next 10 years, right? That's not the case at all. It's just like, yeah, maybe last year was a bit too much weighted towards one side. Maybe next year it'll be more weighted towards the next side. I think idealistically, and this is something Husky, I think, eloquently put to me one point a while ago, where he was basically saying, like, I would love to think every year we can present to the players and say, like, you guys are going to be getting this, you guys are going to be getting this, and basically just targeting all of the individual groups of players, saying, like, oh, you high level players, you've got this update to look forward to this year. Like, oh, you like mid game players, you've got this to look forward to. You skillers, you've got this to look forward to. You know what I mean? Like, you got all these things, and then hopefully every community can feel like they've got something to look forward to every year. I think idealistically that's where it'd be. It's just
that would be
very
cool.
hard to get to that point. It's very difficult. Like, trying to schedule around polling is an absolute nightmare. Like, when I'm talking to my friends in production and they're just talking about like how difficult it is with polling, because obviously you put this massive schedule in, but then you got to put all the polls, and then this project needed more feedback, so then it's an extra like 2 weeks of feedback, and then that pushes absolutely everything in the pipeline down 2 weeks. And then what about if it fails and it's like, oh, now we just have a gap in the schedule because everything's planned for another 3 months in the future? Like, it's an absolute nightmare. But obviously, I'm not saying polling is a bad thing at all. Polling is necessary for old school, but I do not envy my friends in production.
Yeah. No, and
God damn.
There's definitely been a lot of people in the community saying polling is not like essential. People literally think like, polling's not essential anymore. I still think polling's essential for the game, but I do understand the toll it takes on the team, where you want to start working on things, but you need to give an ideation, and that takes a lot of time, and then you have to poll it, and then
it's a lot of steps.
It's just like, that sounds so rough.
Pretty stressful. When you put your blog out for something you might have been working on for like a month, and you're like, please like it. Please, I want to work on this. I want to get it in the game.
And even though people think, polling, I personally, how I feel about polling is, I think it's essential, but I think it's more of just getting the community involved in something. Honestly, you guys as a team do a really good job of listening to the community, at least what I've seen. It's like, you guys do a fantastic job, and that alone is enough, in my opinion. Like, I never have really thought like polling's like great, like, oh, you need to hit the 75 thing, but as long as you're like listening to the community and stuff, I think you guys do an excellent job of that. But I think the polling, having the polling still there kind of sets it's almost like checks and balances. It just kind of like makes it so nothing crazy OP can just enter the game.
Oh, 100%. It does function as that gate, right? The like protection, and I think that's important. Obviously, in the past, it's just obviously, I keep saying the word obviously all the time. It's just to give people comfort at the end of the day, and I'd like to think it does a pretty good job of that. Honestly.
All right, Champions Cape asks. He says, ask Arcane about possibly buffing Inquisitor's armor set bonus. You can use your suggested stats bonuses. He adds me, and then he says, the main issue really being not being able to gain a max hit while wearing 2 pieces plus a Slayer helm. Just to go on to this before I let you answer, I think personally, and I agree with BC Guppy, that the 0.5% isn't enough per piece, and that it should be at least, I think it was a 0.8 or even a 1% per piece, just so that if you wear 2 pieces, you can get a max hit, and then if you wear the full set, even a ham joint can get a max hit. But what are your thoughts? Do you think Inquisitor's ever going to be buffed again? Do you think it's going to even be touched? And what are your thoughts on giving it a little bit more of an improvement?
Just from like a very like simple standpoint, I do think that wearing 2 pieces should give you a max hit, like just flat out. I don't really know where we go from here. Like, it feels weird to pull it to basically say like it's currently given 0.5 or whatever, should it now give 0.8 or whatever the numbers are. Like, that feels like a very peculiar pull. Like, maybe I'm just arguing semantics at that point where it's like, no, it's not weird, just do it. And like, maybe I kind of want to do it, but then it feels weird to do it. I don't know where to stand on this.
Yeah, it almost just feels like this is like, why do you all of a sudden want this? But
yeah, it feels like a really weird thing to do now. it's not like people are like there's a massive complaint about it or anything. Like Inquisitors is still really good armor, so it's like why bother?
Yeah.
But I do agree that it's kind of lame that you don't get a max set without the entire set.
Yep.
But maybe one day it will. Who knows? Like maybe you'll get a strong enough weapon. I don't know what numbers that'd have to be. It's like 1.1%. Is it? Would you actually need like a 100 max hit or something to get a max hit?
Yeah. No, you actually need if you wore one piece, yeah, you literally have to hit. Well, if you wore two pieces, yeah, you'd have to hit a 50. Or no,
Oh, that's reasonable.
No, not a 50. I apologize. You would have to hit a 100.
Okay, so yeah, that's not reasonable.
It is 100. Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna release a weapon that hits 100.
Yeah. No, and the other thing is like personally, I want it to get a buff, and I'll tell you the reason right now. The helmet, the Inquisitor's helmet, only gives +4 strength. So usually wearing a full set only gives you the max hit you would have gotten with full bandos and a face guard anyway. The only difference is you're getting that accuracy, which is nice. But on the off, I guess the downside is that you are really squishy now wearing Inquisitors.
It depends on the weapon, right? I'm pretty sure you gain a max hit if you're overloaded with lance, for example. Like there are certain circumstances where you.
Oh yeah, no, true. There is. I guess I'm thinking of Sarachnis, and I literally have just calculated what I'm doing for the next 5 years. And wearing the Inquisitor's helm or wearing just the Nate it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's the same, right? That's lame.
But I personally, I would love it if the armor was given a 1%, and then if you wear the full set, it's a 4%, because then it's a very clean number, so it's not some weird arbitrary thing, and it makes it so the full set can give the ham joint a guaranteed max hit, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I agree with the concepts. It's just a when or why, I guess, at the end of the day. I think it would have been better on release for sure. And I think that's probably why the set bonus was pulled in the first place, just because people wanted more benefit, but then the numbers just didn't add up perfectly.
He continues on. He asks if there would be a possibility of combining an Inquisitor's helmet with the Slayer helmet. I don't know how I feel about that, but what would you say?
I don't really like that.
It just
feels odd. I don't really like all these combines that we have.
Because at what point do you stop combining things? Because once you combine something with a Slayer helmet, let's combine a Serp helm now. Let's combine this thing.
Yeah, and then it's like, what about all the colored Slayer helmets? Is this just going to be effectively the best in slot Slayer helmet? Like currently we've got all these cosmetic variants. Is this just going to overwrite all of that effectively? Even though most of the time you're not going to get the benefit. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. Like a lot of these updates, I don't know. They're so niche. It's kind of it would be cool to have some of these things, but at the end of the day, what is it worth polling? Is it going to affect? I don't know. There's a lot to look into.
So is it going to make the game significantly better? That's worth doing at the end of the day, and maybe it is where it's maybe these items will go up quite a lot in value, and then it makes Nightmare more interesting, and maybe it makes the armor set more of a choice. But the armor set is already a really good choice at all the content that it probably would still be a good choice at. So how much content would it really affect? I don't know. Sarachnis.
Yeah. All right, Prem. This is a big topic, so I've been kind of waiting for this one. He really wants to hear your thoughts on Ironman alting, and he says Arcane might be the best to ask. He says so. He asks, what are both of your personal thoughts on Ironman alting? Then he asks, what's the rest of Jagex team's thoughts on it? If that's appropriate, and then. Does Arcane think any changes to the rules or mechanics regarding it? Wait. Okay, I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of answered this already on the Q&A, and I've already stated that we are going to be fixing a lot of ulting stuff, the bigger stuff first, such as Corp, Nightmare, Slayer. They're probably the most impactful ulting methods right now, at least from my perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say they're the biggest time saves currently. I don't think anyone really likes it at all. There isn't really going to be people where it's I mean, the Iron Man, it goes against the Iron Man game mode. I think that's objective, right? But it's like, do you care enough to, I guess, do you care enough to really have an opinion on it at the end of the day? But I think it's fairly objective that it goes against the entire point of the game mode. But yeah, there are going to be changes, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think I've already actually devved all of them, and they're in QA, and they're going to get released at some point whenever the schedule is free.
Oh, wow. I guess I'll just share my personal thoughts. People have already heard it, but Iron Man alting is like, it's in the game, obviously. A lot of people do it, and I think the biggest reason why it's so prevalent now is just because there's never been stances really taken against Iron Man that alt.
Yep.
And honestly, like, I don't want to get rid of people's fun. I've said this in previous things. People love Iron Man that I talk to love Slayer alting with their Iron Man. They love just sitting there with their Iron Man in the next room and having another account trident them all and lure them over, and just, then their Iron Man can just continuously barrage. And I can imagine that's just feels rewarding. But I think, yeah, like you said, kind of objectively, it's like, this has never been, it's an Iron Man game mode. You stand alone, so.
Oh, for sure. I love high effort, high reward. That's like one of the biggest things in game design, right? Like, it's just so much more satisfying when those things exist. And by getting rid of Slayer alting for Iron Man, you're effectively removing that for those people. But there's definitely potential. I can't remember who posted it, but I remember seeing a Twitter post where it was like, oh, if you get rid of Slayer alting, could you make like a high effort way of making cannonballs, right? Where it's like,
yep,
the people don't feel like they're missing out too much, and they can put that effort elsewhere to achieve maybe similar XP rates, or hopefully at least somewhat close to it. And I like that. Like, I just don't think alting should be the thing. Like, if you want to put high effort, high reward, you should look to other things, not alting.
I agree. Well, yeah, and I think it's a great thing that it's actually getting addressed at this point, because the longer things are in the game, the deeper and deeper the rabbit hole goes. And
yeah,
so, well, that's cool. I guess I'll just ask, I don't know if you're allowed to say, but what are the rest of the team's thoughts on it? It seems like it's kind of, at least in my eyes, it looks like you, maybe Husky, are kind of advocating for it a little bit, but what's the rest of the team? Because I know that, what other team member even is like, super high level Iron Man or anything that really is passionate about it? But what is the team?
I mean, high level is a subjective thing, so I don't know how you'd classify a high level Iron Man, but there's definitely other people in the team that play Iron Man, and they're doing like fairly end game content and stuff like that. But yeah, I think probably the Iron Man in the team care more, right? For obvious reasons. They're going to feel like their grinds are probably being devalued and stuff. At least that's how I feel, right? Like, I don't like how this, like, a moral thing effectively is better. It just feels very anti-game mode. So I'm obviously going to care more than others, but I don't think anyone's really for it at all. Like, maybe they don't care enough about it, where it's just like, let's get rid of it, because like, it's not hurting the game in the grand scheme of things, right? Like, where it's like, it's not like the game is worse off because of it as a massive hole or anything. It's just the game mode's kind of weird. I don't think anyone's for it, really, at least not that I've heard.
There's definitely people for it that I've heard. They hate me. They hate me for advocating for it because it directly affects them. And, like, again, I don't want to take away people's fun and stuff.
It's understandable.
All right. This one, okay, honestly, I want to go into this. I don't know how much you know about it. I know nothing about making Zammy wines, but I'll just ask this question if you have any sort of thoughts on it. Wizard asks, thoughts on buffing, reworking how you obtain wines of Zammy from Tithe Farm. From what I understand, it's approximately 175 an hour with the 25x4 method at 76 points an hour. Berthorpe Temple is 330 and Wildy is up to 850. Could make it 1 point per grape seed instead of 2. Make blessings convert 20 grapes. And then he goes on, basically he's wanting, this makes zero sense to me because I've never done this. So I don't even know what like he's really talking about. I kind of understand you can get up to 850 wines in an hour in the Wildy, and I think he's wanting farming Zammy wines to be at least competitive rates? What do you think?
Wilderness wines actually 850 an hour. I thought the wilderness ones was the best one at like 300. Actually 850. That's crazy.
He says 850. Again, I have never collected wines. So I have
neither have
zero.
I think I collected 30 in Berthorpe, and then I got the rest from Slayer and Tob and Cerberus and things like that.
Is it 850?
I mean, I'm not opposed to this. I think there's actually a job in our backlog to look at this, like just making wines, just to make it at least somewhat competitive, because I think at the moment it's awful. But yeah, I think it's definitely a potential, especially if it's scaling with like cooking. That's always nice to actually incentivize your skills a bit more. I don't think it would really be broken or anything.
I think
it's just when we do it, I guess. It's in the backlog. The team that's responsible for that backlog will do it eventually, but there's obviously hundreds of things in that backlog. I think generally it would be like, oh, we'll look at this poll. What kind of theme do we want to have for the poll? Let's look at the backlog. Does anything fit this theme? And eventually, I'm sure we'll have a theme that this thing will fit in.
I think that would be great. I've never done the vineyard or whatever for Zambi wines, but it would be really cool if that was like the meta to get it. I know that you wouldn't want to like devalue the wildy because of high risk, high reward, but growing your own grapes sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I have a little question I want to ask. That is, first of all, I love little updates like the Isle of Souls update. I think it's really cool. Just little. That's me because I hear it all the time on Twitter. Stop adding these little stupid things for mid-level, low-level. I love it. I love when the game gets more. It just feels more alive, I guess, in a way. But the question I was gonna, or I guess the little topic I was gonna bring up was, I love those little keys, that little chest, those little Easter eggs where you can go thieve this little chest and get things. But I was very disappointed with the chest. I love those little Easter eggs. I love like little like clue scrolls in a way where it's like, it kind of takes you from what you're doing and you can go do this for a little bit. One of the things I really love and I really wish it was better are those rogues chests out in the wilderness. They're such an old piece of content that's just like, it was good for its time, but it's just been in the game for so long. It's just absolutely not worth ever going there. I
actually got my first dragon stones on my Ironman there because I obviously did thieving quite early on, and I wanted my glory and like a combat bracelet, skillings necklace, and all that stuff. And I just stayed there for a while. I think that was the best way for me to get dragon stones.
Yeah, no, you're actually right about that. It is really good for dragon stones.
But yeah, overall the drop tool was kind of bad, right? And it was high risk being there, so fairly active PK hotspot. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it being better, but it's like, how do you make it better? Do you put something unique in there? Do you make it the best way of getting X resource? Do you, like, because we need to give someone a reason to go in there, right? And unless it's the best at anything, people don't really go. Like, obviously for me, it was the best way to get dragon stones at that certain level bracket, which is fine, but it's not very long lasting.
Well, since you're asking, I think the best way to buff it is, I've literally even asked. Yeah, it's literally double the clue rate with the Ring of Wealth, with a Ring of Wealth eye. Like, why every other piece of content?
Make it good.
It would listen. So right now, the wilderness chests out there give you like, I think it's legitimately 30k thieving XP an hour, like perfectly efficient. It's disgustingly low. Like, absolutely disgustingly low. And I think you get, I don't want to say the wrong number, but I think it's 4 hard clues an hour.
It says it's a 1 in 99 right now. So
yeah, 1 in 99. And I think if you wore a Ring of Wealth and that could double, it would be amazing.
Would that be better than like jellies? I don't know how many clues there you can get. Jellies.
Well, here's the thing: jellies would be better because, well, if you're alting it, it's definitely better at jellies. And at jellies, you get the totem pieces and stuff. And you're not in the wilderness, so you're not risking anything. And honestly, I think wilderness, because wilderness has always had that kind of double clue thing with almost every piece of content.
It does feel like it's a consistency thing, but if it affects them that too much, that's probably why it wasn't done. Would that be a fun thing to do? Do you reckon that would actually be good for you to go there and just open these chests repeatedly, get PK'd every now and again? And
Personally,
it's quite deep and far away from a lot of teleports.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I would love that update, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because they're already, so listen, like green dragons right now is better for hard clues than that, and you're making way more money just doing green dragons, and it's way less risky. Honestly, I think, I know this is like very Sae Bae agenda ish, but like,
how would you do it?
I would say bring it out, because the meta is literally to kill jellies all day, and it's beyond. Barraging jellies is twice as fast, if not more, than the second best way to get hard clues. And this wilderness thieving that gives very, very low XP per hour and very little rewards could be just at least almost up there with jellies. And I think it would be a great update. And it would kind of, Jagex always wants to revive the wilderness and bring people out there. So I think
I'm not opposed to a new meta for clues, since I kind of agree. Jellies is, I feel like, shouldn't be the best content for clues. It feels kind of weird.
Jellies would
I'm not
still.
sure if this should be the thing that would be the best. Like, yeah, it'd still be the best, right? But it makes it more of an option, right?
Yeah. But you're right.
Should this be the thing that's more competitive? I don't know. Maybe this should be something else. It should be something new, something a bit more exciting. Because I can't imagine doing this. It'd be very exciting, to be honest. It could probably get really tedious very quickly.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got a point. I love the kind of reviving dead content, because if it doesn't come from here, then those wilderness chests that really should be at least semi-powerful for something, because they're deep wildy level 50. They're just always going to stay dead content.
It's probably a high requirement as well, so it wouldn't be bought too much, which is nice, because obviously the lower things like that in the wildy, like Fountain of Ruin as well. Like, they just get botted because they're in the wilderness, but they can just avoid all risk by just hopping out and logging and stuff, which sucks. But maybe these chests could stop you from logging out as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally always under attack too, because the rogues are always aggressive toward you when you're opening the chests.
Maybe it bounces itself.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, clues never really invite bots. Like, anything that gives a lot of clues, like, never just outright buffing the loot would invite bots, but doubling like clue chances never really affects bots, at least what I've seen.
Yeah.
The other thing I just need to ask, another Sae Bae agenda before we move on to the next topic, is the Ring of Wealth ever gonna get an eternal variant from the Fountain of Ruin? I have over 1,000 dragon stones, and I need to make sure, like, what do I make out of them?
I have no idea. I can't answer that question. Like, I can't say if it'll ever be done or never be done. Like, I have nothing to. I'm not opposed to the idea, right? Yeah. Personally, but that doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I have all.
You're just gonna have to hold on to them forever.
I know. I'm just nervous because I don't know what to make out of them. But
you can always get more, right? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I would just, if they came out with the exact same thing, like the Amulet of Eternal Glory, and they just made it the Ring of Eternal Wealth, I would just love to be stacked up on rings and just ready to go and just quickly get it. But
I really love, like, infinite jewelry if it's like really rare or like really hard grind or something like that.
I love the ring, or I love the Amulet of Eternal Glory. I thought that was a great update.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Can we have a quick break?
Yep. All right. I'll be back in like a minute.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm back if you are.
Hello.
Hey. All right.
What's next?
Anti-vaxxer asks, well, he just says Tob Dust. Why are jars not uniformly released with each PVM content? Sarachnus Nightmare, but no TOB, Gauntlet, Chambers, or Zook Jad? And what's with Sour Hogs not being blockable? Okay, he has a lot of questions, but let's just focus on the jars one. Tob Dust. Do you think challenge mode TOB or Tob Dust will be released?
I think challenge mode Top will happen at some point, and that's probably what Top Dust is going to wait for.
Okay.
I think we've said that multiple times, and it's still true to this day.
Cool. And jars not being uniformly released with each PVM content. I guess
I don't really know. I feel like it's just on a boss by boss basis. Like probably the reason Tob and Cox don't have it is because there's like multiple bosses, right? Like, yeah, you could just have all of them. Like, from my perspective, I feel like raids shouldn't have them. It feels kind of weird. And same with like Zook and Jad. Like, they're not like loot-based games. I don't know. Like, I can't say like with an objective reason this is why they don't have it. Like, I don't think there is one, but like it just feels like they shouldn't. Like,
I agree.
I can't explain that.
Yeah. No, I agree with it, especially with the Zook and Jad. That's kind of weird. Honestly, even raids kind of ones, like where we get jars right now, they're more like quick fights, and they're just kind of like grindy, singular bosses. TOB and Chamber just seems kind of weird to get it from. Gauntlet, Gauntlet's like a mini game, so it almost doesn't feel like it should come from there either.
Yeah, I mean, you're not really... Yeah, I mean, unless like supposed to be this like pretend thing that you attack in the elf training grounds or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. I really wish jars weren't tradable, man. Oh my god.
Yeah.
It hurts so much whenever we add a new jar, and I'm just like, what? This could have been like a cool like untradeable that people to actually go for, but nah.
At least we have collection log. Honestly, collection log made mains into irons. In a
yeah, I remember you talking about that in one of your podcasts, and it's a good way of putting it, really. It just gives them that extra thing to go for. Like, I've obviously got a lot of main friends that are like, I want to finish Chambers collection log, and it actually gives them motivation to keep going. Personally, I didn't really feel that motivation, but there's people that definitely have that.
Do you think they'll come out with the high scores for the collection log on the official high scores? I haven't watched every Q&A, so I'm pretty sure this has probably even been brought up or something. But so when I ask these questions, I don't know.
It's just, I think we've learned very, very quickly that adding high scores to content that people already have a high score in is very, very dangerous.
Yep.
Like, that was a problem with the boss cases one. Like, our high score is fundamentally, it's like very old technology, sure, whatever. But it's generally fine. For things that people have already been ranked in for a long time, so obviously like skills and stuff, people just gradually rank up, and it's not very intensive to sort people out on like a 1 to 2 rank basis whenever they gain XP or whatever. But then when people already had like hundreds and hundreds of KCs and all these different bosses, it's like, oh, this guy needs to be sorted by 1,000 ranks. This guy needs to be sorted by 500 ranks. And like the individual sorting process is very inefficient when it's sorting things on a very large scale right from the beginning. Like, that's why Soul Wars wasn't that big of a deal to add it a while ago. Like it's got its own high scores rank because no one had a score in it. So like everyone was ranked like -1 or whatever. Like they weren't ranks at all. And then eventually people get ranks and they'll go up by 1 or 2 ranks here and there. It's not a problem. Same when a new boss comes out, like no one's ranked. It's no problem. It's only a problem when people have a large score already, and then we're trying to rank them all and sort the high scores out. Like that's when they just kind of die. I would love it though. Like I think it'd be really cool. Just like there's no like downside like gameplay wise to have this. It's just high scores keeling over.
I think it'd be awesome because there is the unofficial little collection log website, and it's really cool to kind of see where everyone's at, and you can see exactly. That's what's cool about the website is, unlike a certain high scores, you just see a static number. Like this, actually, you can go into it and see what people have, but not everyone's signed up for the website. So, but yeah, okay. Emo Virgin asks, can we get more wildy content without changing current wildy bosses? Seems like huge waste to rework old bosses instead of making new ones. So it seems very passionate about not changing bosses but adding other things.
I mean, this is probably going to come from like the inside perspective where it's just like it's a lot cheaper to rework a boss than it is to make a new one. Like making new bosses is expensive at the end of the day, like the amount of art assets and animations and stuff like that. Unless you want another deranged archaeologist situation where we just copy and paste the 3 boss 3 times. Which I don't think we want. But yeah, like it's much better, and I think the current wildy bosses aren't very good. Generally, like they don't really have mechanics, and their mechanics are just circumvented right now. Like that's not interesting at all. I think there's so much potential in reworking these bosses to make them really interesting, as well as like actually engaging PvP as well. Because like I can't remember where this discussion was had, if it was like Q&A or like a content create call or something. I don't know. There's like the idea, like imagine if all the bosses like emphasize some sort of like tribrid style where you had to bring a bunch of gear to kill it, like the Milo boss, and like that means you're prepared to fight back, right? Someone comes, you've already got gear that lets you fight back, and then you can have it so if you're really good at the boss, you don't really take a lot of damage, so you don't really eat a lot of food. So that means if a peak area does come, you've got a lot of food on it in your inventory still, so you're not at a disadvantage. Because obviously it sucks when Callisto it's just slapping your inventory of supplies, and the peak area comes, and obviously you have no chance to fight back because you got a Vigorous chain mace equipped. You're not going to be able to compete at all. Obviously, Vigorous is probably going to end up being useful to these bosses regardless, but maybe there's more emphasis on actual gear rather than just the weapon itself. So you're not just wearing black D'hide or Proselyte and just equipping these insane weapons. But I think there's a lot of potential with reworking them. I don't agree that it's a waste. I can maybe agree from a perspective of like I'd like more bosses, not just the same ones, but in the rework they're probably not going to be the same ones. They're probably going to feel fundamentally very different.
Yeah, personally I don't even care if they get reworked. I actually like how the bosses are, but I like how the bosses are that you don't take damage, which is what you're already kind of considering. If you're good enough at the boss, you won't even take much damage or at all. If you're perfect.
I think that's important.
I think that's very important. If it's literally just slamming you 30s and then a team of PKers comes, like, okay, this is just obnoxious. But I kind of like the singles plus idea as well. Like if it was...
yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Plus has actually been executed pretty well and shown that the concept does work. And even in DMM, maybe that's the thing in DMM where there's a lot more single plus areas. So it's actually like, well, you can't just run into singles and attack a mob and great. PvP experience over, because that's not very engaging.
Yeah, I just am kind of curious what would happen to like the high scores. You know, if somebody has like 4,000 Vedian and then it gets reworked, if they just keep it all, is it still it's technically the same boss or what? You know,
I imagine you would just keep it all. And obviously, it's gonna have the same pet and stuff. Maybe the pet gets a transmog if it gets a visual update. I don't know if they will get visual updates. I don't think they really need them. I think the bosses look okay. Just the mechanics are a bit lackluster.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always a big fan of just little Easter. Like honestly, the wilderness already has so much in there. So I never really think like new things should be added. I just think older things that are in there should be kind of updated. Those rogues chests, I think the skilling resource area should be updated. Just things like that where they're already in there, but they're just not as good as when they initially came out, and now they're just kind of like dead content. Same with
How
the
would you actually buff some of these things, though? Right? Like, if you look at like the skilling resource area, like trying to emphasize skilling in the wilderness is so hard because you don't want to just make it so it's just amazing GP per hour because it's probably just going to get botted then, and then the GP per hour goes down. Obviously, botting's like a separate issue. You can have a chip team to ban them and stuff, but we don't want to just create content that's just so easily bottable. It's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like, if we can do anything on our side to make the content less bottable, we 100% should. Just because it's just beneficial at the end of the day. But obviously, you don't want to just put XP rates on it either, because then you got the black chin problem where like the EHP for hunters technically the wilderness. Like that's not great, I don't think. But you're effectively forcing people into the wilderness, which isn't nice. But then, and then if it's not GP per hour and it's just like fish an hour, like maybe it's just an ironman thing, like you can get so many dark crabs an hour, like it's insane to fish. But then like, is that good? I don't know.
Yeah,
like, I don't know how you emphasize skilling in the wilderness. Honestly, it's really awkward.
It is. Like no, like you have a good point. I don't know where I would even start. I just say fix that. Do this to it. But yeah, when it actually gets to what should you do about it, there's
like I've heard ideas where it's like say dark crab stack or whatever, like you get this like dark crab bait that you can trade in or whatever, and you get the dark crabs given to you know it from some dude, whatever. But then the more you have, the faster you catch them or whatever, and it just keeps going more and more and more and more. And like maybe you just bring a massive stack to the wilderness already, so then you can start fishing really fast. But obviously, if you die, you lose them all. So emphasize the high risk, high reward scenario. Like, is that interesting? I don't know.
I just kind of thought about this, but what if you're skilling, let's just say it gets revamped so there's not just the crappy rocks in there. Like, first of all, I think the rocks in the wilderness resource area should almost act as like the mining guild where they just respawn faster, because the rocks, well, first of all, I just think rocks in general just need to be updated in general, but I've already talked about that enough. But honestly, what if like every time you did any sort of skilling in there, you get like you have a chance similar to the mining guild. First of all, I love the mining guild. I loved how you get these little, I like those little minerals occasionally. I also love the priff thing where you just get little crystal shards here and there. I love things like that where you just get something extra for participating. So I think like little wilderness tokens or something where
maybe some untradeable reward is what you get, right? Like that actually has a benefit in the wilderness. Like maybe that's the solution. Introduce a new item that you unlock by getting this currency effectively by doing skilling activities in the wilderness.
Yeah, I love little Easter eggs and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of things, but instead of, I was listening to the Olympus podcast that they had yesterday, and they were kind of talking about, fixing smithing and making it so it's not just blast furnace related. But then they talk instead of, and again, this is my idea, is to rework what's already in the game. We have mining spots and rocks all over the game, but they're always useless to do. Like, why not buff them so like the world feels more lively? Like, oh, hey, this is a mining spot that's been in here for like 2 decades and we've never used it, but now because all rocks are kind of uniformly decent to mine now, hey, like this is a nice little spot for mining, instead of just saying, oh, let's just release this brand new piece of content. Like, I know they are very big advocates of like living rock caverns. I don't even know what those are, but they've kind of explained it where it's just this big group activity where you just mine this rock that moves and stuff. Instead of doing that, why not? Which is still a great idea, but there's so many things in the game that can actually just be enhanced that have just been in the game for decades.
Yeah.
I don't know. My own thoughts, but
No, I mean I agree. Like, there's a lot of things that could be updated, and smithing as a skill is probably one of them. It's kind of an outdated skill. I'm not proposing we just rebalance all the tiers, albeit the tiers are very weird.
Yeah.
Um, and skilling on an Ironman, smithing on an Ironman in general is a really awkward spot. I don't think Shopscape should generally be so much better than the other alternatives. Like, it's probably impossible to release a smithing update that's gonna like usurp
Yep.
buying and
It's
hopping. But
impossible. Yep.
yeah, but you could have something that's like at least closer, right? Like, I don't know what the second best alternative is right now. I know Zolcano is technically an option. It's not good XP an hour, but at least you're getting other things while you're doing it. Obviously, you're ranking a bunch of other supplies. You got pet, you got the crystal tool seed, and all that stuff.
Yep.
Helps a bit, like passively letting people get this XP
I
while
think
doing other things.
yeah, the best way in my opinion is just effectively making it so mining can help with the smithing. Cuz we have things like motherlode mine and blast mine and stuff where it's like you get ores but and you get mining XP too, so it kind of like alleviates how much gold you need to buy, but I don't know. Also, I think coal trucks, like, dude, I think coal trucks. There's so many little updates. I would just love for them to actually be good again, you know?
Yeah.
I think the coal trucks would be really cool if it was a fast way to get coal instead of, because literally the meta for everything is just to buy it, just world hop buy. But
Yeah, you get so much coal from random things in this game just because it's been so bad to get in so many places.
yeah.
Passively give it people.
All right. Moving on. Um, GG to HH asks, I haven't even read this yet, but he asks if they are going to fix the blood rune problem. Wait. If they are going to fix the blood rune problem. Oh, I guess that's his, I don't know. That's his sentence. If they're going to fix the blood rune problem. A lot of the issues with equipment rebalancing stem from the fact Seng is unsustainable. If you go even moderately dry for the bow, 99 RC pays like 1k raids. That's ignoring Nightmare or Hard Grind. Okay, so basically he's just asking about blood rune problem.
Uh, yeah, it's a weird one. Like, it's been brought up a lot of times, and there's been like a lot of differing opinions. I'm still on this like boat where I think it's not as bad as people make it out, and I don't feel like the expectation should be that you can use these best in slot items everywhere all the time. I don't think that should be the case. I'm not sure if that's exactly where this guy's coming from. Where he's like, I really want to use it everywhere. It's not fair that I can't use it everywhere, basically, because that's where what it comes down to. I think it's perfectly acceptable to like bring the Trident and Swamp Switch to Nightmare, or just using it in chambers because you don't need to use Sang for solo chambers. It's obviously really nice, but you don't have to, right? But then it gets to the point where it's like, I've got this really cool item. Why can't I use it like as much as I want to use it? But it's kind of up to you at the end of the day. I do think Blood Runes are in a weird scenario. Even that being said, like, I don't like how it's like 100k an hour to buy them and loads of GP, and GP is not that easy to get in that quantity. Like, if you want like 500k blood runes, like, it's not easy to get. What is it, like 250 mil or whatever it is? So 500 GP of blood rune, right? So
Yeah.
100 mil would be 500k. I can't even do math on that
Not
quickly in my head.
No, you're right. It was 250 mil for 500k.
Yeah. So I don't like how that's the matter, and obviously the alternative is like the 2k an hour or whatever you get from blood runes. I don't like how the alternatives. I don't know if I said it on Guardians of Gilmore or somewhere else, but I'm not sorry on the Q&A. But Guardians of Gilmore is a project that was in the Gazette a while ago, which is like a runecrafting minigame that had a lot of proposed rewards, such as a runecrafting outfit that would boost your runes crafted an hour, potentially a blood talisman to enable blood rune crafting, and obviously could be a lot of other stuff. That was just really rough ideas early on in the ideation stage. But that's a project being looked at and being considered. Obviously, no promises, but that might come out and help out. I don't think the solution is blood rune packs at all. Like, you can already buy them really quickly. I know it's frustrating and it's kind of annoying, and world hopping sucks, but I don't think speeding it up or trying to emphasize it even more as a solution, because then that means if we ever do want to have a good way of getting blood runes through skilling or a mini game or whatever, it's probably never going to succeed if we like emphasize it even more, like Shopscape.
I agree. Yeah.
I do think it's frustrating. Like, you can't use your scythe everywhere, but I don't think you should have the expectation you can use it everywhere either.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of awkward because as much as I am opposed to Shopscape, when it takes, how much longer will it take for a Blood Rune update to pass, it almost gets to the point where it's like, why can't... One of the things is, like, even though I'm opposed to Shopscape, it would be really nice if something doesn't come out for Blood Runes that's not Shopscape, if every rune shop could be at least somewhat of a reasonable price instead of going up to like 1400 GP per Blood Rune when the stock's gone.
That is something I'd love to like clarify internally, because I really don't understand why so many shops have different rates. Like, is that an intentional balancing point? Is it like an oversight? Is it just kind of like, oh yeah, the accessibility of the shop is really high, so let's make it like obviously more expensive? Like, is that just the reasoning? Because I can kind of agree with that. Like, if the accessibility is really high, it should probably be more expensive. But with like Prif shop, like the accessibility is not really high, but they're really expensive. The amount of deference I brought on my Ironman and Prif without realizing that shop is so expensive. Oh my god, I spent so much money on that shop without even realizing.
Oh god.
I got crystal implants, thankfully, but oh my god, painful looking back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's kind of like, as much as that would almost just encourage shop buying more, which I understand is not what we're trying to do here. It's like, I don't know. I'm really excited for the Guardians of Gielinor or whatever it is, the Temple Guardian or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the original Blood Talisman's going to come out, and I don't know what your guys' plans are. I'm not going to try to like bait you into doing what I want you to do, but
Stained Essence.
Sorry?
Stained Essence.
Yeah, Stained Essence. Amazing, but we won't get into that. I've too much Sae Bae agenda already. But I think that new Blood Altar, as long as it gives more blood runes per hour than Zaya, and it's maybe a higher requirement and more effort,
yep,
I think that'd be great.
100%.
But that's definitely it's just blood runes are used for so many things now with Theater of Blood coming
I'm not sure on this GG2H guy's post. He says a lot of the issues with the equipment rebalance stem from the fact Sang is unsustainable. I'm not really sure where this goes from. Like, the fact that I can't get a T-bow because I can't use Sang, like, I'm not really sure I understand this point.
Yeah, I didn't fully understand the rest of it. I just realized it was a blood rune question, so yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have a question from somebody that wasn't on Twitter, and he reminded me, he's like, please, can you ask this? So this comes from More Taxes. In fact, I will just copy it over and send it to you on Discord.
Sure.
But he says, another potential topic I have is a GE tax. He says 1.1%, and basically it's a GE tax. He goes on to say what his example is and just how GE taxes work and how it can be a gold and an item sync. What are your thoughts, I guess, on a GE tax? Yeah. He says 1.1%, but I don't know what would even be a good amount, I guess.
I like the idea of something like this. Like, it's probably pretty hard to put in the game because, there's obviously a handful of people. Not a handful, that's under exaggeration. How do I phrase this? It would suck to make it so flipping and merching gets hit massively, because this is what this would do. It almost kill a lot of like small flipping opportunities because of the tax, which would suck. I think quite like the GE as it is right now, but I obviously like an item sync and a gold sync just because they're helpful for the game. I don't think the game really needs an item sync or a gold sync right now. I don't think the game is suffering because of it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like it only helped the game, right? Like it doesn't really hurt the game at all to have it. But I don't think the game is currently in a state where it's like really suffering from inflation or anything like that. But
would you be the reason I would want a GE tax, and I am not like this is not one of my agendas. I don't even use I haven't used a GE in years. I mean, I guess on my alt I buy bonds. That's literally it. But so I'm not very passionate about it, but I think it would be cool. And this is me just assuming because I don't actually play a main account, but I do think it would be kind of cool as if normal trading could become somewhat of a viable option to like get more profit from your stuff. But then again, it's like I don't play a main. I can't really talk about this because somebody's going to come out and be like, your argument is flawed, and I'm not going to have anything to back it up because I literally just don't play a main and I don't know enough about economics. But
I mean, I didn't play back then, but before GE was implemented on OSRS, like people didn't really like it from what I heard. And like I read when I'm looking back at it. And that's why they wanted the GE, so they didn't have to do this like manual trading. Obviously, they wouldn't have to if there's taxes put in place, and it'd be more of an option. But maybe that option isn't as fun as people are maybe hope. Like maybe I mean nostalgia, right? Or it's
exactly.
I really enjoyed it, but it's in reality it's just frustrating.
I think it comes
frustrating. I think that's something we can all agree on.
I think it comes down to nostalgia for me, and also the fact that if you're like a normal contributing member to society, you don't want to spend your whole day just trying to sell your lobsters in Varrock. You just want to get it done. And the community just in OSRs in general has just grown up. So, it's not the same. So I agree with that. I just think it would be cool because it's not even, if you see somebody trading something, you just instantly know it's a scam because there's zero reason to trade people like normally. Which is just sad in my eyes. It's just sad that like if you see somebody like, oh, buying D clause and he's a level 3 account that looks like a bot, it's like, okay, well, obviously that's a scam. But like anybody trying to sell or buy anything that's at the Grand Exchange, you just know it's a scammer. And it's just kind of sad.
Yeah. On a side tangent to that though, I think there's a clan chat that will just come and give you items. Like say you're on Slayer, obviously this is the main thing, but I think you can like join this clan chat. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but you just say like, I need some more prayer pots or something, and they'll just come and give you some prayer pots, and you can do that with a lot of things, like any items really. I think generally people will always like tip them and give them money, but generally they don't really ask for anything. But I think that's kind of like a similar kind of thing where it's like people are generally just trying to help each other out, and you're kind of sort of selling items, buying items off people directly. Which is kind of cool.
That is true. I remember I think it was Wyvern CC that used to do that. I used to do a bunch of Wyverns back in 2015. They came out these little Wyvern CC little services where people would make money by selling prayer pots for like 20K each or something.
It's cool.
Yeah. I love it. I also love runecraft runners as long as they're not botting or just,
Yeah.
I mean, I love that you can use other people's services in game and like you pay them a lot to help you progress your account. I think it's awesome.
100%.
Yeah. The GE tax, again, it's just kind of like, I don't really have a perfect view on it. I just would love the nostalgia that goes along with it. I want, I know it's been talked about on Reddit, Mithril Man mode. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it. I'm not sure what it is.
Mithril Man mode was basically, okay, this is going to literally just separate the community even further, just with any game mode basically. But Mithril Man mode is a mode where it's basically this giant group ironman where you cannot use the GE. You can only trade amongst other Mithril men. And yeah, like I'm saying, and I don't know how I actually feel about the mode, but it's almost like you're still playing good old school RuneScape, but you get the nostalgia of being a mithril man and going to like your little hub where you trade people because you can't actually use the Grand Exchange. And you have like your little community of mithril men that you trade amongst. So for those that want to kind of relive the nostalgia of being able to trade things, and I don't know.
I think it's a really cute idea, and I think game modes like that don't really harm the game in like any way generally. I'd like to think so. Obviously, Ironman modes probably affected the game quite a lot in hindsight.
But negatively, but like, you know, would you
No.
say negatively? I would just say it's affected it, but
I don't think it's affected it negatively at all. That's what I'm saying. Like, Mithril Man mode, I'd like to think wouldn't really affect the game negatively at all either. But and game modes generally like that offer quite a lot of replayability, and they're obviously quite cheap to implement and stuff as well. So it's like nice to think about stuff like that. Quite like even like Bronze Man mode as well. Like,
yeah,
it's probably hard to implement because you need to have a track of every item a player's ever obtained, I think. Yeah. You could just check if they got it on them right now. Dev thoughts.
I know there's a Bronze Man mode on Runelight. It kind of like restricts you arbitrarily.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Runelight plugin hub stuff, there was this transmogrification update where Runelight, there was a plugin hub called transmogrification. You could download it, and you could basically, in fact, I'm just gonna turn it on right now. Basically, you can turn yourself into, like, you can wear whatever you want in the game. So right now on my end, I'm wearing full Third Age Druidic just with the tap of a button.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I've seen stuff like that before, yeah.
Okay. This is too far. It's too far, man. Because now I'm like, my goal is to literally get Third Age like that. That's like overarching goal. And when
you sort of have it.
yeah, when there's an update that just gives me it. I mean, obviously I don't actually have it, but I need to turn it off right now before I get addicted to it again. But like things like this, where the update is, it seems, you know, just fun and games and stuff. I don't know. It's almost getting to the point where what if this transmogrification, they went too far with it, where you can turn on a setting where you can see other people's transmogrifications. Then it's like, at what point does it stop? Like, I don't know. Like, just kind of, I know it's kind of a
what
rant.
you mean. Yeah, it's like this really weird area where it's like, is this actually affecting gameplay at this point? And like, is it just like really subjective? Like,
I know. I get nervous of things like this where it's like, it's crossing these gray lines I've never even considered. And I'm like, oh God, like, where does this end, you know? Because obviously right now, just simply the transmogrification is not that big of a deal. It's just whatever. It's a local thing. It's just like entity hider or something, but it's still scary, man. I'm scared.
it is scary, and plugins have kind of just really evolved over the last year or so, and who knows what they'll look like next year, right? I do wish we could have like stopped plugins at some point and gone like, yeah, we'll allow this set, but no more. Like, I don't know, maybe Plugin Hub was bad. I don't really understand. I don't know where the lines are drawn. Like, I have some plugins enabled from Plugin Hub. Like, I don't have many. I've actually disabled almost everything on default Runelight as well. There's very few things I have still enabled, but even stuff like Inferno Split Timer, like, that's such like a nice plugin that I wish was just in the game.
Yeah, no, for real. There is very, very useful plugins on Runelight just without like the plugin hub, like not thinking about that. I think I've maybe downloaded 3 things from there just to test them out. One of them was like a rune crafting runes, which didn't even work properly. I did like an hour of ZMI. I was like, ooh, this thing counts your runes, but it doesn't do it accurately. So I was like, okay, this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of updates are a lot of these plugins are amazing, and they make my gameplay so much better. I just love playing the game a lot more with it, but you know, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, it's just really subjective at the end of the
day. Do you think, like, I don't know, do you think Jagex will ever come out with their own client, or do you is that just not on the priority because it's just
And there's
useless use
definitely
of money?
potential there, right? Like the Steam clients debate been made now. Like it's released. And it's just gonna be better and better and better, right? I'll get updated. If it gets to the point like RuneLight is, I don't know. I don't think it'll get to that point, but there's definitely things that we can develop that RuneLight would never be able to develop, right?
Yep.
So it can have like unique points, which might eventually convince people to come over. Just like the FPS, right? Like it can get uncapped frame rate. It actually feels really nice. If like camera movement and stuff is so smooth. And there's things like that that can just get better and better and better. But it just takes a lot of time.
All right, I did not want to talk. I did not want to touch on this, but I feel like I owe a cold one. He says detailed answer as to why inventory tags are enabled on your RuneLight client.
Hey, never played Swim on Twitter. Hopefully that sates him, but I don't really have a good reason. I think I vividly remember the day that I enabled it. I was playing on my main. I was learning chambers. I was duoing with a friend. We were trying to do vanguards, and we were trying to like swap gear. Like we weren't following them around or anything and just killing someone. We were trying to swap gear, and I just got really overwhelmed really fast. I'm trying to figure out what this vanguard is, and I need to swap my prayers, and obviously anyone wants to swap into the right attack style. And I remember just enabling that plugin and being like, wow, this makes it so much easier. At the point I am now, since I've done, I don't know, 1,400 chambers, like 900 tall, obviously a bunch of other stuff. Like I played the game so much since that day. I probably really don't need them. I'm not even using the default version of inventory tags anymore. I've got like the lines variant, so it's like I only even use it when I like look for it. I don't notice the lines otherwise. They're like so faint and thin at the bottom. So like it's never really bothered me, the visuals regardless, but now it's like I barely even see them at all. I could probably turn them off at this point. It's just kind of like, why?
I just love this is even a topic. Like, who cares? But like,
oh no,
like it's funny though because like you bring up the thing of like, you know, at this point you don't even need it, but it's just kind of like, I already have it. Like, whatever. Because that's how I feel about my plugins. Like, there's literally plugins I have, and it's like, I don't need this, but
It's like that's the thing with most plugins, right? Like you don't need it, but like, do you have a reason to turn it off? Like the reason to turn off inventory tag is because you might not like how it looks, right?
Yeah.
I think that's generally the point. Like sometimes it's actually like trying to insult the player's skill, right? Like, oh, you need a plugin to play the game, but like you could say that about so many plugins.
Oh yeah.
Like you need tile markers, you need ground menu entry swapper, like. You could see that with anything. Like, why is inventory tags the focus there? I think generally it's the color thing, right? Where it just looks horrible.
It's literally the OSRS community gatekeeping certain plugins. Like, if they're like considered cool or like popular, like then you're good. But as soon as like the OSRS community has deemed this one as cringe, like you're just gatekept from using that specific one because they've decided.
I think it is just like a massive meme at this point. I don't think people genuinely care. Like sometimes people like they care like about stuff that they care about stuff for no reason, which is fine, whatever. But I do think like I remember seeing like a twisted bow with like marked green, and it's like as thick and bright as anything. I do think that looks really bad. Like I even made a point like when I was actively using like inventory tags or like really bright and colorful stuff, I never marked my twisted bow because I just thought it looked so bad. And I was just like, I don't want to like desecrate my like beautiful T-bow with this like luminous green. So I tagged like everything else but that. But now I'm not even at that point anymore. Yeah, it's just like one of those things. It doesn't really bother me. I don't really have an ego. You can't break me.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. Don't tempt people to try to break you.
I streamed Tob in full void to 20,000 people or something. Like I don't care. I was using Accurate on Scythe. Apparently, I didn't even know it.
I wasn't even watching that. Did Husky actually miss Did he die to a soda seg ball? Is that what happened?
He did die to a soda seg ball. Yeah, he failed a ticky. He did succeed the first ticky, and then I succeeded the second, and then he failed the third. Yeah. So he at least did 1 out of 2. I gotta give him that.
Yeah, at least he mentioned it. It says like, yeah, just get it out in the open. You failed it.
Yeah, you gotta own it, you know.
Yeah, you just own it up, because if you don't, you're just gonna be memed for it forever. Okay, Hamster asks, well, Hampshire, I always call him Hamster. He asks, and again, you literally started when the pandemic hit anyway, but he says, how hard is it for the old school team to start remote working, and has it hindered any plans and performance in the teams? And was there things in place for remote work, or did you have to adjust with the new practices?
So before COVID, there was effectively zero processes in place for remote work. There was effectively no way for certain people to work. Like there wasn't a way to like connect to the office or use any of the tools or anything like that. There's probably like specific people in like certain roles that didn't get affected as much. But if you need to access any of the systems, it was all like completely locked down. Just for security, which is obviously, I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's nice to have the options of remote working. Obviously, as soon as COVID got hit, that just had to be like completely addressed. Everything needs to be accessible from outside the office, so that allowed to get set up. I didn't work at Jagex before that. I started remotely, but that's just information that I picked up from my colleagues. How hard was it for the old school team to start remote working? I can't really talk from other people, but I think generally, from my perspective, it's been okay. Like it sucks. It's not good. I'd much rather be in an office, like 100%. But I've had experience remote working before. Like I can self motivate fairly easily. I don't get just stuck in bed every day. You know, like I can get out of bed and get motivated and do my stuff and keep on top of it. I don't feel overly isolated. I've got a lot of really nice friends that keep me company and play RuneScape with them, etc. And I try to be on like voice calls as much as possible every day. But yeah, it is tough. It's definitely hindered performance. I don't think anyone could say otherwise, to be honest. And the plans, and it's made everything harder. I think we've mostly adjusted now, but it's still like the toll of the isolation, and you don't really make friends as much. Like I've started the company remotely, and I've made friends with certain developers, but it's very hard to make friends like when it's kind of forced like that. You don't get those like very natural boundaries of like you make a cup of tea or a coffee and you bump into someone, you ask how the day is and like what they're up to, and then you start talking about what they're doing, and maybe you make plans after work, whatever stuff. Like that just doesn't exist, right? Like the only experience I have with people is generally in a work scenario. So the only people I've really made close friends with are certain individuals that reached out a lot, or maybe we had a lot in common, or maybe we can just play RuneScape together. Etc. But it's definitely been hard, 100%.
Do you think that that the whole working from home has affected like Raids 3 and stuff like that, just high end thing, because it just takes so much coordination and stuff? Do you think that is part of the reason why, at least, I'm just going back to like 30 questions that are just talking about end game thing? Do you think that's
I wouldn't say it's hurt any individual project at all. Like I don't think it's gonna like, oh, we can't do this project because of COVID. It's never been anything like that. But like it has just been like general productivity has probably gone down a bit just because of COVID, and you're gonna have a lot more meetings to like coordinate stuff and catch up, and things that were previously like very natural and easy are now a lot more difficult. There are some benefits, like when we're showcasing our work every sprint, like what did we do for the last 2 weeks to the team, that's a lot easier because we're all on Zoom and we can just share our screen, as opposed to maybe needing to connect a laptop to something or set it up on this weird machine or whatever. So it's a bit more convenient in that regards. But generally, it's just the communication is the thing that really needs to be kept on top of, and that's the hardest thing when you don't really see people ever.
Yeah. Okay. Lemon OSRS asks, would you think of adding practice rooms for chambers and TOB where you can skip straight to Ulm, Verzik, for example, for learning solo chambers and TOBs? They're the big bottlenecks and an absolute slog to get to when learning, especially Verzik. Honestly, so I'm gonna just share my thoughts on this thing in the first place. I know when tournament worlds are released, they will block, Inferno or things like that occasionally. I don't think they have recently. They'll just let people do Inferno. But one of the things like early on when Tournament Worlds came out was like block Inferno because people are practicing for free, no supplies used. Honestly,
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I would almost just say, I mean, obviously these would actually take time to develop, or you could just literally skip to rooms and stuff. But I've never been somebody that's just gonna like, oh, nope, you have to do the whole thing before you want to learn this thing. Like I don't care if people want to get good at the game and this is gonna make them be able to complete a piece of content by practicing. I am not opposed to it whatsoever. But I know people in the community are very into, no, we got to keep the integrity of, you know, this is how it's done. If this is the Inferno, you can't practice triple jads, can't do this. You got to go through it like everyone else has. So I understand both points. But me personally, I would not be opposed to like practice rooms and practice. Like I really just don't care. But what do you think?
I think I like the current stance. Like, I don't care about supplies as much. Like, I'm not opposed to Inferno being enabled on Tournament Worlds because I don't think supplies really matter at the end of the day. But I think what does matter is the time and the pressure that generally comes from it. So if you could just go to Zook like immediately, like, Zook is not a hard fight at the end of the day. It's because you've spent so much time getting there and you have so limited supplies because you've had to spend the last hour or two preserving as much as you can. And it's all that pressure that adds up. Like individually, like Jad and Zook aren't that hard. It's just the stress that gets to you and the pressure.
Yep.
At least from my perspective. So I think just skipping and letting people get free practice would be really bad, personally. For Verzik, it's obviously a weird one because it's not really meant to be soloable. I don't think getting to Ulm is very long.
Yeah.
And you can reset that fight over and over and over again in P3. So
and you can even die and you're still there.
Exactly. So I don't really see the problem with Ulm either. With Verzik, maybe. Like it does take quite a long time to get to Verzik, and I can imagine it's very frustrating to learn solo Verzik, and yeah, you just mess up one ticket and say, okay, and I'll go do another hour. But that's just kind of the nature of that content.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you can practice TK anywhere in reality.
I don't think spending like dev time to make practice rooms is necessary whatsoever. I'm not into that. But when it's so, I don't know, like when things are so gatekept, like for example, if you could practice Zook, and you know, you spent an hour practicing and you're like, okay, I feel good. When you get there on the actual run, you're still going to have that pressure. It's not like, oh, I've already done this.
100%.
Like pressure's still going to be there. So I don't think it really devalues anything. In fact, I think it just makes people better at the game. But again,
it definitely would make people better at the game, but I do think it would.
It kind of devalues,
somewhat.
And I agree, and it's almost to the point where it's like, what would be exactly the reason to spend time making practice rooms? Like, so that's the whole thing. Is like, I'm not against it, but what's the point? So,
yeah, that's fair.
I have a question actually about. Well, I guess literally it's not going to have an answer either way. But well, I guess it would have an answer if it's not coming out. But combat achievements, all you guys mentioned was the 6 Jad challenge, and I've told people I don't think that's all you're doing, but I don't know. I almost feel like you guys are like hiding something, but then again, I'm a very superstitious person, so I feel like, are you guys coming out with anything else, or is it literally just 6 Jads? Like that was the thing. I guess you can't answer either way.
I think it's 6 Jads. Like I did the play test the other week or something, and it's just 6 Jads. Like I guess debatably it is more because you've got like the 1 Jad and then the 2 Jad and then the 3 Jad. But at the end of the day, it's just like the 6 Jads content. There's no Inferno 2 or anything like that.
I swear. So I know this is all just my own speculation. So that's good to know, because over the past month, I was like, yeah, it's probably just 6 Jads. They've literally not talked about anything. But in the initial blog, I guess I read between the lines a little bit too much, and it was like one of the challenges is the 6 Jad thing, and then I was like, oh, so that can't be it. But just and simply because at the end of Inferno now it says Zook's died or and then whatever the little dialogue says. says, or
Yeah,
is
that
he
wasn't
dead?
really for the six jazz thing. I think that is just to like kind of indicate that maybe one day we
Inferno
can
2,
do
maybe.
like a Inferno 2 or a challenge mode or whatever it ends up being. Like just leaves it a bit more open ended for us.
That's
Makes a bit
true.
more sense.
Okay. Depending on how much you can talk about this topic, I have another thing. So, combat achievements. Um, how long, like, how much actual time wise do you think it'll take for like when combat achievements are released? I don't know if you're allowed to mention this, but how many actual like hours or days or weeks or something would it take for the first person you think to fully complete the diary would like take? Like, what are you expecting, Wooks or whatever, whoever the first person is going to be to do it? How long do you think it would take them to fully complete?
Um, that's a really hard question.
Like, do you
And
think
like
they're
you got
very time based? Like, are the challenges time based, or is it really just skill based? And it's just
it's majority skill based. Like
okay,
there's KC tasks, but there aren't many of them, and none of the
yeah,
KC tasks are particularly high. The only high KC tasks is debatably just raids. I think but raids are like really deep content, so that's why the KC
yeah,
tasks are higher than others comparatively. Um, so if you didn't have the KC, you're going to be limited by that. But I think most of the people that would be capable of completing all the tasks first try, like without any failures or anything like that, would probably have that KC anyway. I'd like to
yeah.
think. But assuming the player completed every task first try, there's 350 tasks. You're probably still looking at like I really don't know. Like maybe like a month, 2 months, 3 months. Like assuming you complete every
Damn,
task and you're already really good at all the content.
damn. Okay,
Like if you're already capable of getting all the speedrun tasks as well, like it's 350 tasks. Like for one run of TOB, you still can't complete every task I think in one run. So you'd have to do multiple runs. So you've already lost an hour just to try and do like
yep.
4 or 5 of the TOB ones, and then you
So
got the speedruns as well.
so quick little thing on that. So if you complete the Grandmaster sets, like, are you able to even complete Grandmaster tasks before you've completed the lower tiers? Like, let's say
Yeah,
for
you can complete them whenever. You just can't complete the tier unless you've completed a previous tier, similar to
okay,
our
okay,
current.
okay. So you can't just complete all Grandmaster and get the perks. You need to complete everything.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, damn. So it's actually going to be like a legitimate grind. It's going to be kind of. It's not just going to be something that Wooks completes in 4 days when he streams.
That's the thing. I think there are very few people in this game that are like masters of every single piece of content in terms of like mechanical skill, as well as like actually having enough gear to do it all, as well as having a team of good enough people to do it all. Because like
Yep,
perfect top is actually a really hard task. I think like you need everyone to just not make a mistake throughout an entire run. I think that's actually quite difficult.
that's exciting,
But
man.
maybe I'm underestimating our players, but.
I don't know.
But then, even then, you've got these like top Andes that are amazing at top, and they're getting like these sub 12s or whatever. And then like he goes to solo bandos, and they just suck at it. Like
Yep.
there's probably a lot of people that fall into that category, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I remember Adwam even just god at the Inferno, but I remember when he was first kind of doing TOB, he just could not understand the 7-tick cycle of Verzig. It was just so awkward for him. But you just
Mm-hmm.
spend enough time in there, and then you just become a pro at it. So yeah, well that's cool. I was not expecting like I was expecting maybe like 2 weeks or something, but yeah, months. That sounds exciting. Sounds like a lot of content for the players, and obviously you're probably a lot of the people probably won't even be able to do it in 3 months or so. It'll probably take them a lot longer, but that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't think there's not that many people who are going to be able to do all of the like really hard tasks on release, as well as actually have groups for it. And even the ones that do, they need to still do all 350 tasks. Like some of them are going to feel very tedious to these people that are already good enough to do like all the speedrun tasks and all the mechanically difficult tasks. But they're still going to have to go through everything, and like some tasks require Slayer task, right? So then you're going to have to go get your Grotesque Guardian task to do all the Grotesque Guardian ones. And what about if you need a second task? Like, obviously, it's time gate in the sense that it's other mechanics really limiting you, but they're still factors at the end of the day.
Yeah. All right. Manic Marauder asks, what is one of your favorite content pitches that never made it into the game? And then I'll ask the second question after it. Well, the second question is your opinion on what is the most busted thing in the game. We'll start with the first one.
So is that like a pitch that I made, or is that like a pitch that the team has made at any period in the past that never got accepted?
I guess either. Just what's something that you really wanted to go into the game, but it just didn't make it?
I don't know. Most things generally pass, don't they?
Yeah.
I think if you go like failed polls on OSRS, like there's not really that many. So I don't really know, to be honest. As far as a list somewhere. Nothing particularly comes to my mind in terms of like, oh, I'm so sad that this failed. I really wish that this came into the game. Like, obviously, I know I worked on Boss Slayer Master, but at the end of the day, people didn't want it, so I'm not sad that it didn't get added.
Yeah, I guess that's that because that's the only thing I can even think of that didn't pass. That was
recently.
Yeah,
I know stuff like Divine failed, but like I'm not really that sold on Divine. I think it's kind of cool, but I don't think it'd actually be that useful either.
It was a selfish update I wanted it to come out just so I could have another unique that I could get when I go back to Corp. Eventually, just something to relieve the pain. But yeah, I'm not particularly like for it.
I kind of liked a lot of the skill ideas, to be honest. Like, I don't really have a lot of expectations as a player when it comes to a new skill getting added to the game, where I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. I would probably train that. That kind of ticks my box. I'm not too bothered about like a lot of grinds getting devalued. Again, as a player perspective, I know, as a dev perspective, I'm very worried about devaluing a bunch of people's grinds. But like as a player, like I'm just happy to get content generally. I'm happy as long as I've got cool stuff to do. Like sailing, artisan, I would have probably been happy to skill those. I don't think they're necessarily the best examples of skills, like especially fleshed out or whatever that we've ever had, but I still probably would have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
This failed poll page has 13 things on
it. Gosh.
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. I don't really have a good answer to that.
So, what is the most busted thing in the game, in your opinion? Or it's such a
pipe.
Oh wow, okay. Shit, you're just taking it right there. Okay.
I mean, that's like the obvious thing, right? Yeah, I feel like it depends how you look at it, but like most content's basically been bounced around it, so maybe it's not that busted. But then if you just look at like that weapon compared to its previous tier, like holy shit, man, it's out of this world.
It's
like,
disgusting.
I don't think you really understand how insane that iron is. It's ridiculous. Like you compare like D-Skim to a whip or something, and like you compare like MSB or Carol's to
blowpipe.
Toxic blowpipe. it's just insane. Like I really wish we could just go back in time and just make it like 3-tick or make the stats actually reflect a 2-tick weapon, because it is literally just a Carol's crossbow 2-tick. It's stupid.
If it had just come out as 3-tick, it would have been so good. It would have
been fine. It would have still been an upgrade. It wouldn't have been great, but
yeah. But like with
the content,
yeah, for sure. Like, with the upgrades we have now, like Rigor and Anguish, a 3-tick blowpipe would still be really good. And the thing is, a T-bow that came out probably wouldn't have been as overtuned as it currently is, and like a DHCB would have never had to go extreme. And
I kind of like how a 2-tick weapon became popular, because I think 2-tick weapons are really fun to use, and they're like fairly high skill gap compared to other stuff, since it's harder to get the most out of value, and I really like that, and that's why I don't really want blowpipe to become 3-tick. I'd rather just rebalance the stats around. But obviously that's a separate topic for a separate day. It's a whole project in itself. But yeah, I think that's individually the most busted item old school's ever released, and it's probably influenced the game in so many ways that I don't think people really understand. Like, imagine all the content that's changed because of that. Like, I remember you saying, like, Dragon Hunter Crossbow has basically been upgraded to match Blowpipe, and then, well, that's probably true with pretty much everything.
Yep.
Like, the amount of bosses and, like, weapons and stuff and gear that's come out, just thinking, like, well, this is the baseline, you can get this in range, so we've got to kind of look at that. Like, it's just influenced so much. But if we're gonna go from a more maybe personal standpoint, there are some drop tables that are just so good. Like I was kind of disappointed maxing my iron in a way because I was one of those players like I'm never gonna max. I have no interest in maxing. And even a month ago or 2 months ago or whatever, I still had no interest in maxing. I didn't really care. Like I don't care about the cave. I don't have like this ego. I don't really care about the completionist aspect of it. That's just not me as a player. But it really did just get to the point where I'd done so much PVM. I just had so many 99s banked. I'm just like looking at it like I might as well just do it. It's not going to take that long. I'm looking at Nightmare and Scythe and finishing Chambers, and I'm like, these grinds are going to take ages. I might as well just max now and get it over with. Like I've already got it all banked. So it was like, okay, I'll just do that and then get back to PVM.
Yeah.
I never use my max cape, by the way, at all, like ever. Like I think the only time I use it is like if I'm barraging or something and I want to use like blowpipe to tag stuff, like I'll bring that instead of a mage cape.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like I just can't be asked using the interface on that iron, man.
I love the max cape. Like there's little teleports. I know people really wanted the. I don't have it on me right now, but the farming guild, how you have to go to other teleports to click on the farming guild. A lot of people just they wish they kind of rearrange it, but honestly, like the max cape's first of all, it's busted. It's almost as busted as a blowpipe is, but like it's still fun to use. What do you think? What do you think of it? I just want to hear your thoughts. I don't know what the team thinks, but your thoughts on a champion's cape, max cape. But before we just say it's just cosmetic, I want it to still function as a max cape, but have the look of a champion's cape. So it doesn't actually offer anything additional, but it's still a max cape. Because what would be the point of just a cosmetic? Like would it really be that busted if you just had a cooler looking max cape so people could wear that to flex? Like I don't know. I personally would love it, and I'd actually go for a champion's cape.
I really like the idea of there being another, not completionist cape, but completionist-like cape, where like you could. I think Steve mentioned it on the stream yesterday for Olympus, where we're like, oh, what about if there's like a minigame cape and a combat achievement cape, and then maybe there's a cape for having all of these capes, like, but you don't have an actual completionist cape because completionist is this like really hard thing to define, and like where do you draw the line? Yeah. And it gets really awkward really quickly. That's kind of why I don't really want that either. But I do like the idea of having these like additional things separate to maxing your account. They give you something to flex at. Like you've completed all this section of content. I don't know how those sections are really defined, whether it is mini games or whatever. I don't know. But I like stuff like that, and maybe those capes could have similar effects to a max cape, where it's just got a bunch of useful teleports. I don't know if I like the idea of just being able to combine capes with the max cape and retain max cape functionality, like because you end up just going down that rabbit hole of like, why not all of them?
Yeah.
Like why Champions Cape out of everything? Is there nothing like better? Like why not Achievement Diary Cape? I don't know.
All right, listen. This might sound very weird, but I've been thinking of this little idea for probably like 3 months. It's just on and off. Usually when I go to sleep, it's so nerdy, but I'll literally go to sleep and I'll think of cool little things for the game. But listen, okay, before anybody judges me on this, I want a new item slot, and I want it to be a belt slot. Wait. Just before you put down the idea, there's a new belt slot in between torso and legs, and you use leather to craft it, and then you can put a belt buckle on it, and it would be made out of gold or silver with a jewel on it potentially, and you can enchant it and it'll give some sort of upgrade. So there's a just absolutely new slot belt, and you see you'd have to craft it, so it'd be kind of similar. It would be just a new little crafting thing. But I think what would be really cool is if the collection log had, because I always think, oh, a collection log cape or a collection log helmet or something. Like, no, a collection log belt, and it and then, like the tiers of like how many items you've completed on the collection log would like upgrade your belt so it looks like more fancy and shit. This sounds so weird now that I'm saying it out loud, but it's actually like, honestly, I think it's such a cool idea because listen, like a belt, what, like, honestly, just like actually like aesthetically wise, like would it actually clip with almost anything? Like I feel like a belt is like one of those things that wouldn't actually even affect the actual appearance of characters that drastically. Like I don't think it would be that hard to implement, and I think it's just one of those cool things that would make old school kind of more quirky in a way. Like you can now have these enchanted belts that you can wear and you can see them. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I know I just went on a weird thing. Everyone in the chat's probably weird champing, but I don't know. What do you think?
I kind of like it. Like, I like the idea of a new item slot. I don't know what that'd be, and it's kind of awkward. Like, I know that was like a really rough idea a while ago in tournament, which is like a second ring slot, but then the second ring slot's like
utility.
Only like, yeah, it'd be like very specific utility rings, so you wouldn't be able to work like 2B rings or anything. Yeah. Like, I think a good example is that celestial ring that's getting pulled for shooting stars. Like maybe that would have been a utility slot ring. It doesn't obviously have any stats, but it has like benefits. Or I guess it debating has a mining stat effect, but that's a benefit or whatever. Semantics. I think maybe that's an option. Obviously, it doesn't have any graphical implications. Belt slot I'm not sure about the whole times, like collection log and stuff like that. It feels a little awkward, but I like the idea of a belt slot in general. Like, I agree it wouldn't be too visually impairing, but the belts would probably need to be fairly tame. I don't want these like diamond encrusted belts.
I'm just thinking of like a WWE like fucking belt, big ass like
huge belt buckles. No way.
Like, but it would be cool because honestly, I feel like there's perks nowadays that jewelry could have given, because I know like the silver jewelry came out and they gave these little perks, but it would be really cool as if there was this completely new mold where you can make a belt buckle and like you can enchant it to do something. They could even be sort of more utility instead of like actual stats. I don't know, but
yeah,
just something I've been thinking. I have never mentioned it until right now because I just it's just weird.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the high level concept of a belt slot. How it actually works, I don't know. I'm not really convinced on your implementation, but something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but I do think the utility ring would be really cool, or just a ring you can attach. So even if it does have stats, it would just take the utility from it and just not use the stats.
Yeah, it could be something like that, right?
That'd be really cool.
And then simpler way of implementing it, get the passive benefits without the stats.
The other thing I think would be cool is, I think Gentle Tractor mentioned it about what were they called? Trinkets, skilling trinkets, where like it's a blessing slot, but you can store your skilling outfit in a trinket. So you can still wear fashion, but you're getting the effect of the skilling outfit through wearing the trinket. So it would
I don't like the idea of people getting skilling outfit benefits without having to wear it. It feels weird.
I just hate how everyone has to look the same when skilling, but I know you guys have kind of made certain things where you're making skilling outfits look different with the prospector and the fishing outfit.
Yeah, there's definitely alternatives. But I feel like that's the trade-off, right? It's like you're wearing this outfit for a specific goal. Yeah, I know. We have some outfits in particular where it's just like, just wear this all the time. Kind of hard to avoid that, though.
Yeah. And that's just
because if you did that, then people would probably wear graceful, right? Like, people store their fishing outfit and they just wear graceful. It's like, did that really solve anything?
Yeah, but so the trinket would act like you couldn't wear two outfits at once. So like the trinket would negate anything that you are wearing, or it's not like it's negating it technically, but like two outfits, like you couldn't just wear two skilling outfits and get the bonuses for each. The trinket would like override what you are wearing. But I don't know.
Just equip this blessing with full graceful in it and just have a graceful effect everywhere for free.
Yeah, I don't know. It is kind of like arbitrary now that I kind of think about it, but it is. The reason it would be cool is just to be able to wear fashion while doing stuff, but still get the skilling outfit effect, just so people can look like they want to look when doing skilling. But yeah.
I've actually rarely equipped my skilling outfits just because I can't be bothered getting out my
I know.
POH. And I skill
Everything's
too
in my
arbitrarily,
POH.
so I just wear whatever.
Yeah. Well, we are out of topics.
Oh my lord. Do you not want to talk about Elder Maul?
Here's the thing about Elder Maul, man. Oh god. Okay, so I need to make a video. I talked to I'm a Drum. I need to make, before I talk about it anymore, I need to make a video. Because seriously, the more I talk about it, people just like, it's like a meme. I need to make a super flashy video that can just appeal to everyone. And I really do think that my idea, the Elder Maul being charged with Onyxes, making it an imbued Elder Maul, is the perfect solution to an Onyx sync and the perfect solution to making a mega rare from Chambers worth it. But I will make a video eventually. Don't worry. Like, might not come out for another month or so, but I will eventually work on it. I've actually already been writing the notes to it so I can have like my script ready, because I'm planning on having Drum like do the edits, because there's no possible way I'm going to be able to do it myself. I'm going to make him do the edits. I'm literally just going to send him like all my audio files and just compile this. Like, I trust you. Just make something flashy, make some explosions and shit. Like,
Nice.
I don't know. But eventually it'll come out.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess to finish off, I have one last thing. If you could remove one thing from the game and add one thing to the game, what would it be? And they can be as large.
It's such a popular question, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think this is asked to every single new developer whenever they get like interviewed or something like that. That's the exact question.
True. Yep.
Just because it really does give you like a proper big insight to the person as a whole, right? I think a lot of people just like go to the default, just like, oh, remove the dual arena, and I agree, dual arena's kind of shit, and I don't think it really helps a lot of people at all. Like, even if you win or lose, I think it just ruins the game for you, ignoring the whole problem with addiction, etc.
Yep.
But I can't remember why I answered this last time. I don't think it was that interesting. I remember I wanted to update Gauntlet a bunch because I thought Gauntlet had so much potential, has so much going for it. It just needs a few things to really push it a bit further. Gauntlet update 2 when? What I remove? I don't think there's anything particularly in the game where I'm just kind of like, I hate how this exists like so much, where I think it'd be better off just not being in the game. It's just like certain things I'd want to tweak, like in so many areas, but like nothing I just want to straight out remove. Because it's probably just the developer and me being like, that'd be such a waste to just delete it. I'd rather just edit it and update it, find it or whatever.
And I actually like that approach more, instead of just outright removing. A lot of things can be edited to make it just way better.
Probably a bunch of engine level things that probably be like, why can't this just be removed? Like when you up the you click on the chest at TOB and then it opens and your character just stands there like a melon. There's so many like random things like that, and I'm just like, why, please.
Okay, so nothing like actually crazy that you'd actually remove.
I'm just like scanning over the world map right now, like, looking for stuff where I'm just like, I hate this.
Yeah. No, and like honestly, when I think, because there's certain things I would want to be taken away, like Sae RC has always been one of them. Winter Todd's always been one of them.
Chaos Altar, yeah.
Chaos Altar, but like at the same time, they don't need to be removed. They just need to be edited, and so like I'm kind of with you, where it's like, I don't know. As soon as these things are out for just so long, it's like, removing it just kind of almost removes the charm now from RuneScape. At least Winter Todd. If Winter Todd was removed, it would actually, honestly, I'd be sad about it, because it's just kind of like,
Yeah,
It's like an actual like core part of the game now. So
it really is weirdly.
yeah, I don't know. So nothing particular in your mind.
I would love to remove. Which one is it? I need to confirm. Deranged archaeologist. That boss does not need to exist.
That boss needed to drop a unique.
It just needs something. Currently it just kind of exists.
It's just
there.
it's just like it's just like a powerful man NPC. It's just there. Just like why?
It's just so weird. I don't get it. But yeah, that's probably the one thing where I'm like, I don't think anyone would miss this.
I wouldn't.
Like, to be honest, if you were just gonna yeet something into the game, I do wish there was a use for fossils. Like, I think that'd just be kind of cool to round out the island a bit.
True.
I wish. I was gonna say Dragonfire Ward actually had a proper use, because right now it's like whatever. It's like no accuracy at all.
It doesn't have a special attack either, does it?
I think it does.
What's the special attack for it?
Maybe it doesn't.
Is it even charged?
It is charged, yeah.
What's it charged
you
with?
You can discharge it, and it does 25 damage. So
okay. So it's just like a DFS, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never had one.
Plus 15 range accuracy. It just doesn't matter. I wish accuracy mattered in this game, and this is just going to be a massive like tangent, but like it just frustrates me how like there's so many things in our game that are so low defense, and just having low defense just means accuracy doesn't matter at all.
Yep.
And it just makes like our diversity in weapons like so linear. Like there's so few bosses where accuracy actually is a choice, where it's like maybe I should bring this. Like Bandos is a good example, right? Like you might not get a max hit from bringing prims, but the accuracy is actually significant. Like
yeah.
It might only be a couple of points, but that guy is tanky as hell.
Yeah, it's kind of
like few instances of that.
When I was talking to BC Guppy, he was big advocate for just buffing all mage weapons to give them actual like significant accuracy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now
the one thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One thing hurting mage from being overall is probably barrage, because like it's so hard to like, unless we like separate PvP and PvM like accuracy, like any like big buffs to like mage, like say Kodai did end up having like 80 mage accuracy or something like, so it has an extra 55 or whatever over what it currently is. Like, that's such a big buff to barrage, and that's so scary. And just from like even just a PvP perspective, where it's kind of like, do you want freezes to land that consistently? I don't know. It's kind of nuts.
Okay, listen.
Maybe.
Listen. What legitimately? I would need to talk to PKers about this. But what would happen if they made it so freezing is not a guaranteed 20-second freeze? Like, what if it was
scaled with your accuracy or something?
Not even scaled. What if it was RNG like hits are, where it's now you're frozen for 1 second to 20 seconds, like in between there. So it's literally, you can actually.
You would need some way to visualize that. It can't just be like a random, like, oh, maybe they don't freeze in a second, maybe they'll unfreeze in 5 seconds. Like, you can't like purely RNG. It needs to be visual, and I don't know how you'd be able to communicate that visually.
Why would it need to be visual, in your opinion?
Because it'd be frustrating if your opponent just randomly started moving and you're like, well, I can't really play around that. I don't know when I need to refreeze. I think that changes the core like PvP loop a bit too much. I kind of agree with a variable freeze length, and obviously it debatably is with the pre-mage, but it could be more variable depending on other factors. But I think that factor needs to not be RNG or very, very visually clarified.
Yeah, I don't know. I just
maybe they are just frozen in a block like constantly, and then it disappears, and then they can move. I don't know. But
yeah, like
it needs to be clear.
I don't know. I'm just thinking like we could buff accuracy of mage weapons and make it so you literally freeze almost every time. But now it's not a guaranteed 20 seconds, because it is so annoying being frozen for 20 seconds and potentially now like 24 or whatever it's coming out. It's like, geez, like they need to come out with that melt spell, man. I'm telling you. The melt, and there needs to be something that benefits the person that's getting frozen. If freezes are getting longer and longer, there needs to be a melt spell. It's like it can still be RNG to like land, but like every 5 ticks you can cast the spell and you can like melt yourself from the freeze. Like the fact that you're just stuck there, just vulnerable. I don't know. I just have never.
I mean, you're not completely vulnerable, right? You can flick, you can equip gear, you can.
Yeah, it's
you
true.
can still defend yourself at the end of the day, and you can debatably still fight back. But I think the whole Iron Man PvP scenario is just this weird ecosystem, right? Whereas there's no point, but
Yep.
you're supposed to fight back generally.
Yeah, I could talk forever about RuneScape, honestly, in general, and just my own ideas.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. That was all the things I had. Do you have anything to add to anything you were?
I'm pretty happy with that. I think we got through quite a lot of different topics, but yeah, I mean, obviously, I really appreciate being invited onto this. I enjoyed talking about the game as much as the next guy.
Well, thank you, man.
Hopefully I can give a bit more clarity on things as well sometimes, where it's just like a different kind of perspective, right? Since sometimes you just get a bit of a circle jerk in a community of people just saying the same thing over and over again. And hopefully maybe I can break that up a bit in a way. I don't know.
No, it's honestly like I seriously appreciate you coming on, and like it wasn't a big deal. I just seriously, Arcane, like for those listening, I mean, I literally just asked Arcane if he'd be on it, just super willing. And so I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I'd be super down for another one. Maybe like get BC Guppy on and we can get like one like really big topic.
A 3-man, like a 3-man Sae Bae Cast. God, that would be incredible.
This sounds fun.
Dude, BC Guppy would love that. Oh my god, dude. He would be all over that.
You have no idea how frustrating it is to like listen to a podcast and like people say stuff and I'm just like I want to like reply and like say stuff and like chime in and like sometimes as well, like I was listening to the Olympus one yesterday and sometimes it'd say something like slightly incorrect, maybe around some upcoming content maybe where it's just like they've misremembered it or something and I'm just like I want to clarify and like give an opinion on that. Like,
well, shit, I don't know. I mean, there's unlimited potential for the Sae Bae Cast, so we could definitely do something like that. And I would be more than honored. Like, that'd be amazing. So
yeah, sounds fun.
Well, Arcane, it was a pleasure. Thank you for being on once again. For those listening, so I apologize again for not having a Sae Bae Cast the past 2 weeks, but we will continue on the weekly basis. So not sure who I'm going to get on next, but hope you guys really enjoyed this one. And if you guys did, give Arcane, I don't know, give Arcane a shout out, or what am I even saying? It's show him some appreciation somehow. I don't even know how. Give him a follow on Twitter. How about that? And I will link your Twitter in the thing. I'm assuming most people probably already follow you if they're active on Twitter, but I'll link that. Is there anything else you'd like me to link?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks again, man. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Bye.